Chapter 698. After an hour, what made Chen Hao depressed was that after losing the rootless fruit in the spirit spring lake, the spirit trout had hidden somewhere. Even though Chen Hao had recovered some physical strength, he could not find any trace of the spirit trout in the cool and deep lake water, let alone catch it. Fortunately, there is no shortage of ordinary fruits and animals here, so I don't have to worry about food and clothing. Chen Hao looked up at the sky, then down at the ground, and then at the lush vegetation in the depths, and thought to himself, "A complete law is dissolved in heaven and earth, and is omnipresent. If I want to recover my spiritual power, I can only rely on my own comprehension." In fact, after swallowing the rootless fruit, Chen Hao also found that although the fragments of the heavenly Tao contained in it could be directly in his dantian, he still had to rely on himself to comprehend it. The only advantage was that it shortened the time to catch the fragments of the heavenly Tao. These fragments of the heavenly Tao were extremely mysterious and complicated, and definitely could not be comprehended in a short time. As Fan Dongxing and Fan Donglu said, in the first level of the 9 restrictions of immortal sealing, there were not many places with cave residences and spirit springs for cultivation. If a cultivator was obtained by the spirit fruits and spirit herbs and really took this as a shortcut, he would probably end up in a miserable state. Haha! Since it's a place of inheritance, there's no reason for it to be obtained through spirit herbs. When this training space was set up, it was definitely impossible to integrate the heavenly Tao into the spirit herbs. The reason it's here now is because the spirit herbs have naturally absorbed part of the heavenly Tao fragments after a long time. To be precise, it's the result of their evolution. Just like how my physical body evolves with the environment. It must be like this. Just as Chen Hao stood in front of the cave and pondered, the others also came out of their cultivation state. Obviously, they also found that they had obtained the fragments of the heavenly Tao but could not comprehend it for the time being. After a discussion with the others, Chen Hao really decided to focus on cultivation and comprehension here for the time being. "Little Wu, you're finally here." In the sect ruins, 2 figures sat cross-legged and looked at Helian Wuzi, who had just arrived. This was already the 2nd year since Chen Hao and the others entered the 9 restrictions of immortal sealing. Tantai Lian and Xia Yuyu had already arrived. At this moment, there were no other cultivators in the entire sect ruins. They had not seen each other for more than 10 years in the primal secret realm. Naturally, they were very excited to see each other again. At this moment, Helian Wuzi became more and more ethereal like an immortal. Her beautiful hair fluttered, and her small face that was as cold as the moon seemed to be shrouded by a layer of faint moonlight. It allowed people to clearly see that absolutely beautiful appearance, but in the blink of an eye, it was as if they hadn't seen anything at all. "Xiao Wu, what's going on?" Tantai Lian and Xia Yuyu asked in surprise. At this moment, Tantai Lian had already coiled up her fine black hair, clearly telling everyone that she was already a woman. In fact, this was the first time she had truly fused her yin and yang with Chen Hao. After losing her primordial yin body, she was already a woman. However, she did not tie up her long hair. It wasn't until the last time she really walked together with Chen Hao that she changed her hairstyle. She, who was originally otherworldly and elegant, had an additional trace of tranquility and gentleness. Using modern words to describe her, she was a beautiful young married woman that attracted endless fanciful thoughts. The picturesque Xia Yuyu's pure and flawless eyes had not changed in the slightest for many years. Not to mention that she originally had a face that could topple cities, even if she didn't, just her pair of beautiful eyes could mesmerize all living beings. My power of reincarnation is becoming stronger and stronger. Shaolian Yuyu, I'm a little scared. Helian Wuzi, who had landed beside the two, directly expressed her worries. This was the first time she had seen a familiar sister in more than 10 years. During this period of time, especially after she had boarded the aircraft and rushed here, when she was meditating and cultivating on the aircraft, some scenes that did not belong to her at all would automatically appear in her mind. It was as if thousands of lifetimes had floated and sunk, seriously disturbing her tranquil heart lake. However, not only did it not affect her cultivation, it instead became even more terrifying. At this moment, with every breath she took, Hellion Woozy felt as if she had become one with heaven and earth. Her body was filled with energy that was as vast as the mountains and seas. She was certain that as long as she was willing, she could trigger the heavenly punishment at any time and step into the heavenly immortal realm here. However, she did not dare to. Xiao Wu, your aura is very strong, so strong that it scares me. What are you afraid of? Xia Yuyu asked, puzzled. I'm afraid that I'm no longer myself. Hellion Woozy expressed her worries. How can that be? We've asked the experts who guided our cultivation. Although the power of reincarnation is the most mysterious power in heaven and earth, the awakening of 100 lifetimes of reincarnation, it's only the awakening of power. It will definitely not affect you. No, this is different from what the seniors who guided us said. I've awakened not only the power of reincarnation, but also some scenes that do not belong to me at all. There are many, many. Otherwise, I would be able to trigger the heavenly punishment and step into the heavenly immortal realm now, Hellion Woozy said. As she spoke, her gaze slowly swept across the entire sect ruins. Suddenly, she let out a cry of surprise. What's wrong? Tantai Lian and Xia Yuyu frowned and asked. They turned around and followed Hellion Woozy's gaze, but there was nothing unusual. However, Hellion Woozy seemed to have not heard their question. She stared blankly at the sect ruins, rumble. In her mind, the collapsed palace was uprooted from the ground and quickly reassembled. One by one, cultivators dressed in ancient attire, young and old, appeared inside and outside the palace. Some were singing and laughing, and some were sitting cross-legged in cultivation. Every palace exuded an immortal aura that Hellion Woozy had never sensed before in the vast universe galaxy. In the martial arts arena, there were young disciples competing. There were countless youths watching. Experts with white hair and beards who looked like old immortals were holding down the fort. Rumble. Suddenly, the heavens and earth darkened. An extremely terrifying aura of destruction appeared outside the entire sect. It was also at this moment that all the cultivators looked towards the void. Immediately, all the scenes in Hellion Woozy's mind disappeared. It was as if she had entered a starry void. There was no sound, no energy. There was only a young girl whose face could not be seen clearly. She was surrounded by several old men sitting cross-legged in the middle. The faces of the old men could be seen clearly, as if they were telling the young girl something. Suddenly, the old men moved again. Hellion Woozy's eyes widened. What did she see? She saw the stars and the moon. Every old man could take the stars into their hands with a wave of their hands. Reincarnation is immortal. Go, child, after the young girl sitting cross-legged in the middle turned into a bright flowing light and disappeared into the endless void, a gentle and old voice appeared in Hellion Woozy's mind. Although it was a language that Hellion Woozy had never heard before, she clearly understood what the old man was saying. Xiao Wu, Xiao Wu? Ah. Hellion Woozy didn't know why, but her beautiful eyes were already filled with sparkling and translucent tears. That intermittent scene was like a memory hidden in her mind. Especially that gentle and old voice at the end, it was more like it was narrating a kind of vicissitudes and solemnity that existed since ancient times. That young girl whose face couldn't be seen clearly made Hellion Woozy feel that she was inextricably linked to herself. Everything was like a movie. She wasn't sad, but from the depths of her heart, it was as if she was infected by the subconscious sadness. What exactly happened? Xiao Wu, what happened? What did you see? Why are you crying? Xia Yuyu and Tantai Lian asked. Although the two of them did not see anything abnormal at all, and only Hellion Woozy was abnormal, at this moment, the two of them knew that something must have happened to Hellion Woozy. I don't know. I don't know. All the illusions disappeared. In front of her was still the broken and desolate sect ruins that were filled with an ancient aura. Hellion Woozy, who felt like she was in a dream, still had tears in her eyes as she murmured. During this period of time, her mind was restless. The power of reincarnation was crazily awakening. She had encountered countless similar scenes, but they had never been so real. Although the scenes today were still intermittent, they were relatively complete, especially the young girl, the old man, and the last voice that appeared at the end. Xiao Wu, don't worry. The power of reincarnation will definitely not let you become another person. Although we don't know what the power of reincarnation is, in 100 reincarnations, every life is a new beginning, and it is also you. Perhaps there will be some deep memories that will be awakened with the power of reincarnation. Just like the absolute art that you awakened, it will be passed on to you. But those are all memories of the past, aren't they? Don't be afraid. Tantai held Hulian's cold little hand tightly and comforted her. Yes, Xiao Wu, don't be afraid. Xia Yuyu also said. Although the two of them did not know what Hellion Woozy saw or sensed, they knew that she must have been affected by the power of reincarnation. Shaolian Yuyu, I want to walk around here. Hellion Woozy heard the two of them and regained a trace of calmness. Before coming, the flying device's AI had already told her the situation here in advance. She knew that Chen Hao and the others had already been transported into a training space. They just had to wait here. We'll accompany you. No need, I want to walk around by myself, hiss. After Hellion Woozy finished speaking, her figure flashed and turned into a stream of light, walking towards the barren and broken ruins. Although all the illusions had disappeared at this moment, they still appeared vividly in her mind. She landed in front of a collapsed palace and seemed to subconsciously search for something. When she found a rusty plaque in the ruins of the palace, she waved her hand and released a gentle energy to clear the stains and dust on it. Then, she saw 5 ancient characters that she didn't recognize at all. She had never heard of them before. But it was these 5 words that made Hellion Woozy widen her eyes in a daze. Under the control of her subconscious, tears once again flowed uncontrollably. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 699. Why? Hellion Woozy stared at the 5 ancient characters on the plaque. Her voice trembled as she muttered to herself. She didn't recognize them, and she was sure that she had never really seen these 5 ancient characters that had been buried in the dust for who knew how many years. However, the image that had just appeared in her mind was like an illusion, and she clearly saw the original appearance of the palace in front of her in the past. On the plaque, there were these 5 characters. Is there really a past and present life? Is this world and this sect really related to me? Hellion Woozy was certain that all of this was because she had awakened the power of reincarnation. She wanted to understand what was going on, but other than the images that appeared in her subconscious mind, as well as the sadness that made her cry uncontrollably, she was unable to obtain any other information. She flipped through the ruins one after another and found broken and decayed plaques one after another. She saw ancient words that were exactly the same as the scene that had just appeared in her mind. This made her understand that the scene that had just appeared in her mind was definitely not an illusion, but something that had truly existed. Little Wu, what's going on? When Hellion Woozy returned to Xia Yuyu and Tantai Lian's side in a daze, Xia Yuyu and Tantai Lian asked a little worriedly. Just now, although they didn't accompany Hellion Woozy, they looked at her from afar. Hellion Woozy's appearance made them faintly worried. I saw many scenes, the scenes of the sect ruins in the past when they were still intact. The names of each collapsed palace were not wrong. I saw before the universe collapsed, a few old men used the great magical power of picking the stars and catching the moon to do something to a girl, they said, Reincarnation is eternal. Go, child. This, when Xia Yuyu and Tantai Lien heard Helian Wuzi's words, they were stunned speechless. Because of Helian Wuzi, they also had some understanding of 100 reincarnations. This was a kind of mysterious power that was similar to a bloodline inheritance, but also superior to a bloodline inheritance. Any cultivator who could awaken the power of reincarnation contained the terrifying energy accumulated from 100 reincarnations. As one's realm increased, this energy would gradually awaken and become one's own use. At the same time, it would be accompanied by the awakening of a unique inheritance. However, under normal circumstances, it wouldn't involve any memories of past experiences. Eternal reincarnation. Do you think I'm that girl? In that case, would I still be me? Helian Wuzi asked apprehensively. Even though she knew that Xia Yuyu and Tantai Lien wouldn't give her an answer, if she didn't say it now, she would feel very sad, very worried, and very afraid. She wanted to pour her heart out. That won't happen. Xiao Wu, don't worry so much. You have to know that this universe has been destroyed for an unknown number of years. Tens of millions of years, or even billions of years. How many reincarnations would that take? If you were her, you would have already completely awakened. Xia Yuyu said. That's right. Perhaps it's the influence of the remnant aura of the ancient sect. Your physique is more suitable for this place, causing the scenes of the past to appear in your mind. The most likely reason is that your physique is similar to that girl's, said Tantai Lien. Perhaps, don't think too much. Yes. Helian Wuzi sat down cross-legged. Although what the two of them said made sense, she knew that her situation wasn't that simple. After the three of them chatted for a while, they entered a state of cultivation. However, in less than 2 hours, Tantai Lien and Xia Yuyu suddenly sensed an extremely strong energy fluctuation, which made the two of them open their eyes in astonishment. Immediately, they also saw the astonished Helian Wuzi. The three of them were actually wrapped up in layers upon layers of mysterious runes. The area of 300 meters around them became extremely resplendent 7-colored rays of light. Moreover, the fluctuation became more and more intense. What's going on? Did the restriction open? Xia Yuyu and Tantai Lien asked in surprise. The place where they sat cross-legged to cultivate was the core of the 9 layers of restriction that Chen Hao and the others had activated before they entered the sacred training ground. However, when they arrived, it had already closed. But now, such a strong fluctuation actually gushed out, and the two of them instantly sensed that the source was Helian Wuzi. That's not right. According to Xiaoji's information, a space-time door was opened here before. It was a sacred training ground that was transmitted to this universe. How could it be opened again? Could it be that they're coming back? Come with me. We can go in. Helian Wuzi didn't have time to answer the two of them and directly urged them. Hiss. Although Xia Yuyu and Tantai Lien didn't understand what was going on, they hastily rushed to Helian Wuzi's side. The moment the three of them grabbed her, a 7-colored pillar of light suddenly enveloped the three of them. The space distorted, and they disappeared from the sect's ruins. Chi. Crack. Crack, rumble. At the same time, the entire space of the 9 celestial ceiling restrictions suddenly shook violently. The energy of heaven and earth roared, and the heavenly Tao reversed. Terrifying thunderbolts filled the entire space of the 9 celestial ceiling restrictions. Violent winds and torrential rain, mountains collapsed, and the earth cracked. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. How can it be? Someone just broke through the 3rd restriction. How can the 4th one be here? All the cultivators, no matter where they were, no matter what they were doing, at this moment, restrained their auras to avoid the terrifying shaking of heaven and earth. No one would have thought that in 2 years, only a few cultivators had broken through the 3rd restriction. Most people hadn't even comprehended the 2nd restriction, let alone the 3rd one. However, at this moment, the terrifying shaking of heaven and earth and the changes in the heavenly Tao's laws were enough to prove that someone had broken through the fourth restriction. In the 9 celestial sealing restrictions, once someone broke through a restriction, it would cause the entire space to shake and the heavenly Tao's laws would change, and the second restriction would open. Crack. Rumble. What no one expected was that as soon as the shaking of heaven and earth ended, the heavenly Tao's laws changed again. Shockingly, someone had comprehended the 5th restriction. However, this was still not the end. When the 9th restriction was completely opened, the space of the 9 celestial sealing restrictions became one, and there were no more barriers. All the cultivators stared blankly at the sky. They didn't dare to believe this was real. In theory, this shouldn't happen no matter what. It was simply impossible for it to happen. No matter how high one's comprehension was, no matter how talented one was, there was no way one could completely comprehend the 9 celestial sealing restrictions in such a short time. After all, one had to comprehend and break through the restrictions one by one. How could one break through consecutively? However, this was the reality. Everyone sensed the changes in the heavenly Tao's laws. Apart from shock, they also felt an indescribable sense of panic. Who could be so powerful? When the 4th restriction was broken. Flying immortals. Immortals, 3 immortals. Quick look. What? While all the cultivators in the 9 celestial sealing restrictions were immersed in shock, Chun Hao and many of the other cultivators who had been teleported in saw an unbelievable scene. In the 9 heavens, amid the terrifying lightning, a rainbow-colored light streaked across the sky like a shooting star. 3 dreamlike figures could be vaguely seen. They were wrapped in the rainbow-colored light, and it was as if immortals had descended from the 9 heavens. One of the figures was sitting cross-legged, and the other 2 were gazing at her from the side. Soon, they were heading toward the depths of the 9 celestial sealing restrictions. They've broken through the 4th restriction of the 9 celestial sealing restrictions. The nearby cultivators who saw the strange phenomenon in the sky were extremely shocked. Just from the lightning surrounding the 3 girls in the 9 heavens, they were certain that one of the 3 had broken through the 4th restriction. When the 4th restriction was broken, Chun Hao and the others, who were sitting cross-legged and cultivating in a cave abode on a mountain peak, rushed out of the cave abode and stared at the void. Even Chun Hao was extremely shocked at this moment. He had not been the first to break through any of the first 3 restrictions. Although he had comprehended it not long after the others had broken through, he had not been the first to break through. This was a situation that Chun Hao had never encountered before. One had to know that his comprehension ability was quite impressive, and it was also one of the aspects that he was most confident in. However, in front of the geniuses of the 10 major galaxies, he had lost his previous advantage, which also made him feel pressured. At this moment, he had not even fully comprehended the 3rd restriction, but the 4th restriction had been broken first. The 9 celestial sealing restrictions had 9 layers of space. If the 1st restriction was broken through, the space before that restriction would be merged into one, and the heavenly Tao's laws would change. However, this did not mean that every cultivator only broke through the space barrier. Whether the 9 celestial sealing restrictions had restrictions, and how many restrictions there were, still depended on the individual's breakthrough. This is too fast. Someone was the first to break through the 3rd restriction 3 days ago, and now he has broken through the 4th restriction. It must be the same person. How could it be so fast? Long Ting said in surprise. I'm afraid the geniuses of the 10 major galaxies are far beyond our expectations. Chen Shui stared at the changing wind and clouds, frowned slightly, and said softly. As she spoke, she looked at Chun Hao, who also had a solemn expression on his face. She knew very well that Chun Hao, who had never lost to anyone in any aspect, must have more than she had thought. The 9 celestial sealing restrictions have no advantage for the human clan. You don't have to worry about anything. The top experts of the human clan are the strongest in the 10 major galaxies. The higher the realm, the stronger the advantage of the human clan. Venerable Han Mei said softly. Although her and Venerable Yun Wei's cultivation was almost at the bottom of the group, their mentality was the best. They were afraid that Chen Hao and the others would be shocked, so they comforted them. Chi. Rumble, ah? That's... Suddenly, a dazzling 7-colored light surrounded by lightning appeared in the sky above Chen Hao and the others. It was as fast as a shooting star, but 3 dreamlike figures could be vaguely seen. Surrounded by lightning and turbulent core. They have comprehended the 4th restriction. Why do I feel a little familiar? Chen Shui said in surprise. Chapter 700. It's Xiaolian, and Xiaowu and Yuyu. Chen Hao's heart skipped a beat. Although he was about to break through the 3rd restriction of the 9 restrictions of immortal sealing, the increase in his perception was limited. He could only see the silhouettes of the 3 dreamy figures wrapped in colorful light and thousands of thunderbolts. He could not see them clearly at all. Not to mention him, even Chen Shui, who had awakened her ability to perceive, couldn't sense the slightest bit. She only felt that the 3 hazy figures were somewhat familiar, but Chen Hao instantly determined the identities of the 3 people. It was because of the Phoenix inheritance. Bam! Chen Hao stomped his foot and immediately rose up like a cannonball. His powerful physical strength created a huge pit in the hard rock ground, sending gravel flying. At the same time, he sent out messages to summon the Phoenix in his mind, trying to stop Tantai Lian and the others. But no matter how fast he was, no matter how hard he tried to summon them, there was no effect at all. The 3 people who were like shooting stars streaking across the 9 heavens didn't seem to know of his existence at all. They still maintained the same posture and instantly disappeared into the distance. After that, just like the other cultivators, Chen Hao was shocked by the continuous and successive tremors of the heavens and the earth. What was going on? Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu, and Tantai Lian should not have made it to the gate of time and space. Logically speaking, it was impossible for them to appear here. However, they had appeared. It would be fine if they just appeared, but why were they wrapped in the Thunder Dao Law and entered so quickly as if they were immortals and broke through the 9 restrictions of immortal sealing? How, are you sure it's Xiaolian and the others? At this moment, Chen Shui and the others rushed to Chen Hao's side and asked. The aura of the Phoenix inheritance can't be wrong. Xiaolian can confirm it. Although she can't see clearly, the other 2 are Xiaowu and Yuyu. According to Xiaoji's calculations, if they hurry, they should have met up about now. Chen Hao said. How could they come in? And, they must have broken through the 9 restrictions of immortal sealing. Is that possible? Long Ting stared at the still shaking void and asked in confusion. Chen Hao looked at everyone and asked, do you feel the aura of the 7-colored light and the law of lightning? They clearly passed by us, but they don't seem to be in the same world. It feels like the aura of a space-time door? It seems so. I also sense the aura of the space-time gate. The one sitting cross-legged should be Xiao Wu. Could it be related to Xiao Wu's reincarnation power? It shouldn't be. Although the power of samsara is profound, it shouldn't be able to continuously break through the 9 restrictions. Chen Shui frowned as she pondered. Chen Hao also thought of this possibility, but like Chen Shui, he rejected it. Everyone discussed for a while, but to no avail. This was completely beyond their understanding. If Chen Hao could communicate with the old god, he might be able to deduce what was going on. Unfortunately, even though he was close to breaking through the 3rd hex and possessed a certain amount of mana and telekinesis, he was still unable to communicate with the old god. He could only give up and put the matter aside for now. Either way, it was still good news to know that the 3 of them had made it to the core of the 9 restrictions of the immortal sealing world. At the end of the gray space, specks of blue will-o'-the-wisps appeared. A well-preserved group of ancient palaces could be vaguely seen. The palaces and pavilions were carved with dragons and phoenixes, and the profound aura of the heavenly Tao filled the air. From afar, many cultivators could be seen flying in. "We're here." At this moment, apart from Chen Hao, who was still relatively calm, Chen Shui, Long Ting, and the others all took a deep breath. Their expressions were solemn, and their fighting spirit surged. They had already experienced such a scene twice. Every time someone broke through the first layer of the 9 restrictions of the immortal sealing world, a huge group of palaces would be opened in front of them. To be precise, it should be an ancient city. According to everyone's estimation, this should be a ring-shaped city. Cultivators from all directions could enter as long as they went deep. Of course, the prerequisite was that someone had broken through the 9 restrictions of the city. Otherwise, they would be sealed by a powerful barrier and unable to enter. Such a situation was like a myriad of streams converging, gathering layer by layer. When they reached the last layer of the 9 restrictions of the immortal sealing world, all the cultivators who had entered would probably gather there. A fierce battle was inevitable. On the first and second layers, the situation was still fine because it was too large. The cultivators they encountered were basically human. Although they had a few conflicts with ignorant fellows, they could easily deal with them. Although they had heard that some people had encountered foreign races, Chen Hao and the others did not encounter them. This is the third layer. Conflicts are inevitable. We might encounter foreign races. Everyone be careful, Chen Hao said. The previous 2 situations had already made everyone clear that the situation of the 9 restrictions of the immortal sealing world was very different from the situation recorded in the information. After a long time in the wilderness, although many powerful demon beasts and spiritual items of heaven and earth had been born, the true treasure land was still in the palaces on each layer. All kinds of ancient treasures, secret manuals, pills, and so on were spread throughout every palace. It was as if this holy land of training had become one of the inheritance points deliberately left behind before the collapse of the universe. In order to obtain it, besides one's own talent, one needed great strength to deter others. Big Brother Chen Hao, none of us have fully comprehended the 3rd restriction. I'm afraid we can't enter any of the palaces. Is it appropriate for us to go now? Fan Dongxing said. It's fine. We haven't comprehended it, and the others haven't either. Let's seize the territory first. The comprehension of the heavenly Tao in the city is deeper and faster, but we have too few people. It's still very troublesome. Last time, we relied on you and Little Ting to deter others. This time, it'll be even more difficult. Look at those groups that entered. There were at least 30 or 40 people. Chen Shui frowned and said, You haven't fully comprehended the 3rd restriction, so we can't enter the palaces. It's fine if you're alone, but I'm afraid we'll have problems. This was indeed a problem. No matter how strong a person was, in the absence of a powerful true essence and psyche power, the limitation of pure physical strength was still very great. In the face of the temptation of ancient treasures and secret manuals, even the internal conflicts of the human race were quite tragic, let alone the foreign races. If they could quickly break into the palaces and enter, they wouldn't have to worry about being surrounded. But if they couldn't enter, Chen Hao could ensure his own safety, but he couldn't protect everyone present. This didn't mean they were weak, but that they had too few people. It was difficult for 2 fists to fight against 4 hands. Once they fell into a chaotic battle, they would inevitably lose sight of one. Why don't we do this? Little Ting and I will go in and seize a large palace first. You 2 can cultivate in the periphery of the palace complex. It won't be long before I can open it. At that time, Little Ting will take you 2 over. Chen Hao pondered for a moment and thought of a compromise. Everyone felt that this was safer. They didn't have to worry about Chen Hao and Long Ting. Chen Hao's body would automatically evolve to the peak strength of the 9 restrictions of immortal sealing. Just by relying on this, he didn't have to fear being surrounded. Long Ting, who had comprehended the second restriction, always had the advantage in terms of physical strength. Although she wasn't as freakish as Chen Hao, she was still extremely powerful among the human race. If she couldn't win, she could run. An hour later, everyone arrived in front of an ancient city that stretched as far as the eye could see. Majestic ancient energy and fragments of the heavenly Tao filled the void. The palaces that shone with a faint blue light like the wisps were even more mysterious and profound. It felt as if they had walked into the graveyard of the ancient gods. To be precise, this was equivalent to the graveyard of the ancient gods. When the universe collapsed, all life in this universe, no matter how strong they were, couldn't survive. But they could rely on their powerful abilities to leave behind their indestructible wills and heavenly Tao laws. In the city, every palace could be considered the graveyard of an ancient almighty. In the first 2 levels, Chen Hao and the others had entered many palaces. Even the worst palace was left behind by at least a heavenly immortal expert. Moreover, the heavenly immortals of this world were far more powerful than the heavenly immortals of the vast universe galaxy. Look, the leader is Chen Hao. The largest palace we saw on the previous level was the one they obtained. Oh? He defeated Lu Fengnan's team? I can't see how strong he is. That's because you didn't see him. Lu Fengnan's team of 100 was brutally ravaged. At that time, Chen Hao was fierce. He went deep into the crowd alone and captured Lu Fengnan. He forced Lu Fengnan's team to retreat and occupied the palace. It's best if we don't provoke this person. Don't look at how there are only 9 of them. 4 of them are genius female disciples of the temple, and the other 2 are young men and women. They are both top geniuses of East Flow City and will definitely become temple disciples. As for that Chen Hao, although he isn't a temple disciple, his strength is terrifying to the extreme. It is said that when they were at the transmission point of their sect ruins, even Chen Lin was sent running away by him. Is that so? Then I think there will be a good show to watch. Just because we don't provoke them doesn't mean others will be afraid. They can at most be considered the strongest at your transmission point, but they definitely can't compare with ours. Our transmission point has Chun Lin and Moling treading snow together, forming a team of 300 people. No one dares to provoke them. Do you know who broke through the second of the 9 immortal sealing taboos first? Moling treading snow. Even now, he still hasn't made a move. But the strength of his aura is absolutely far more terrifying than Chen Hao's. We'll definitely meet him in this area. Let's wait for a good show. As for the strongest palace in the core area, there's no need for us to think about it. It will definitely be occupied by Moling treading snow. There's nothing we can do. When we encounter these freaks, we can only give way. This is only the 3rd level, and the foreign races came all the way here just to show off. But after another 2 or 3 levels, we'll automatically meet them. At that time, it will be even more cruel. Let's wait here for a few more days. Let's gather our teams and increase our strength first. Let's look at the situation. If things really don't work out, we might as well join Moling treading snow's team. Don't. If we stay with them, we'll just be drinking soup. As long as it isn't a life or death situation, we absolutely cannot stay with them. After Chen Hao and the others entered the city through the wide city gates, they saw a group of over 40 people sitting cross-legged near the city gates. 2 leaders of the temple disciples were discussing in low voices. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 701. Chen Hao realized that compared to the previous 2 forbidden cities, the cultivators in this city were much stronger. He had seen some of them before, but most of them he had never seen before. Moreover, most of the teams had more people. Gathering in groups to display the strength of a team would become more important towards the end. Of course, there were also solo cultivators and Dao companions, but these were the minority. Moreover, only a few of these people dared to enter the core of the city to fight for territory. Let's stay here. When they went deeper and passed by a row of smaller palaces, Chern Shui looked at the few cultivators around her and said, "You guys be careful too. There are even more experts on this level. Our area involves at least 10 armies." Chen Hao and Long Ting responded and went deeper. They knew very well that as they went deeper, the competition in the city's forbidden zones would become more and more intense. The only reason it was still mild now was that they had not really encountered a foreign army. Once the density reached a certain level, it was inevitable that the city's forbidden zones would become fierce battlefields. Ancient palaces were shrouded in dense mist. The sky was gray and the heavenly Tao laws were everywhere. After the 9 immortal sealing restrictions were broken in one breath, the entire area of the 9 immortal sealing restrictions became chaotic. Every level of the city's forbidden zones became the best and quickest place for people to break through and comprehend. There was no doubt that the third forbidden zone was the place with the densest and most complete fragments of the heavenly Tao laws. As long as they completely understood the third restriction, they would be able to form the corresponding runes and open the treasures of any palace. "Brother Hao, it's about time." After going deeper for dozens of kilometers, the two of them had already reached the core of the city. The circular palaces that were arranged in all directions also became more and more magnificent. At this moment, 16 palaces formed a circle, and at the core was the tallest and largest palace that was like a mountain. Long Ting knew that the core palace would be a place that all the teams would fight for. In Long Ting's opinion, it was not very possible for the two of them to snatch it. Yes, let them fight for the core palace for now. Of these 16 palaces, we'll take one first. If anyone dares to open their eyes, I don't mind killing them. Don't. Just intimidate him. With the command medallion in our possession, every move we make here will be recorded. If we kill our own clansmen without sufficient reason, the Divine Temple will definitely punish us. You've seen it for yourself during the last 2 fights. No matter how unreasonable a person is, they would at most be crippled. Big Brother Hao, I feel more and more that this 9 restrictions of immortal bestowment area is too different from the holy lands of training and tempering in the records. This is like a dead end that forces everyone onto a path of slaughter. In the end, I wonder how many people will be buried here. Yes, this is no longer a pure training ground for the 9 restrictions celestial bestowments. There's no training ground that would gather all the treasures in a single city. Every single palace here is a treasure trove. Moreover, once someone obtains it, the palace will vanish into thin air. Moreover, when you think about the eternal will within the palace, it's not difficult to deduce that these palaces, or perhaps the entire city, were formed by an ancient mighty figure using a great ability. Apart from the primordial spiritual treasures and secret manuals that we obtained that were real, everything else we saw was fake. This is equivalent to selecting an inheritor. So, you're not wrong when you say it's a path of slaughter. If you want to obtain even more formidable magic treasures and secret manuals, then you have to step on ghastly white bones to advance. I've thought of this since a long time ago. I won't take the initiative to start a slaughter, but if someone dares to open their eyes, then I don't mind starting a slaughter first. This is something that will happen sooner or later. The level of ferocity in the end might far exceed our expectations. Chern Hao spoke with a calm expression. Chern Hao had never been afraid when facing competition. After he comprehended his own Tao and returned to his true self, the Tao of nature, Chern Hao clearly understood that the Tao of nature wasn't to have no desires, nor was it to stand aloof from the world. It was to maintain a calm heart of an expert and face everything. It's really cruel. Fighting and killing is too boring. I haven't rested for a long time, Long Ting said. Due to the uniqueness of this girl's cultivation method, the way she grew up was different from the majority of cultivators. Even though she had adapted for a period of time in the Divine Temple, She couldn't change the habits that she had cultivated since she was young. She couldn't stand up when she could sit, and she couldn't sit when she could sleep. Having delicious spirit fruits was better than anything else. But ever since she came to the 9 restrictions of immortal sealing, under Chun Hao's coercion, she had no choice but to work hard. This was undoubtedly the most painful thing for her. Fortunately, it was Chun Hao. If it had been anyone else, they probably wouldn't have been able to subdue this girl, but it had to be said that Long Ting's talent and comprehension were extremely heaven-defying. She was only second to Chun Hao among the 9 cultivators when she was forced to do so. If this girl became interested and put in 100% of her effort, she wouldn't pale in comparison to Chun Hao. Moreover, every time she broke through a limit, her physical strength would increase to an extremely terrifying level. Her current combat strength was absolutely not something that Chen Shui, the 2 sisters, and the others could compare to. Otherwise, Chun Hao wouldn't have brought her in alone. It's good that you're used to it. Cultivate in front of this palace. The way to break through the 3rd restriction as soon as possible is the way to go. If you can break through before me, you'll get the biggest share of the pills and spirit fruits this time. Chen Hao tempted with a faint smile. Out of the way! Out of the way! In less than 4 hours after Chun Hao and the others immersed themselves in cultivation, more and more cultivators poured into the city from the huge entrance. It was obvious that after sensing that the 9 restrictions of immortal sealing had been broken one after another, they were all making their way to the 3rd restriction as quickly as possible. Groups of powerful cultivators released their auras. As soon as they entered the city, they demonstrated their strength and dominance. It was normal for cultivators to fight for this place. Those who were weaker could only avoid them even if they were dissatisfied. Brother Moling? Haha. Nice to meet you. I didn't expect you to come in as well. The 2 groups, each consisting of 100 people, met at the city gate. In one of the groups, a young man with an imposing appearance and an unruly aura was surrounded by a crowd. After seeing the leader of the other group, a trace of seriousness flashed across his eyes, and he immediately revealed a trace of a rare smile as he called out to the leader of the other group. Moling Takshu's white clothes were purer than snow. His long black hair was scattered behind his back. His figure, which was clearly not very tall and appeared somewhat cultured and refined, was actually emitting a wild and arrogant aura at this moment. Those bright star-like eyes gave one a kind of cold, determined, and fierce feeling, just like a wolf king. Moling Takshu immediately frowned slightly when he heard the other party take the initiative to greet him. He immediately revealed a smile and said, "It is indeed a pleasure to meet you. It seems that there are a few legions in the 3rd restricted area. I just don't know how many legions there are." Haha. No matter how many there are, I, Bai Yen, will fight for the core palace. Bai Yen was one of the top experts in the Earth celestial stage of the Divine Temple and one of the 50 commanders. He was ranked 9th among the disciples in the Earth celestial stage of the Divine Temple, one rank higher than Moling Takshu. "Same to you," Moling Takshu said lightly without any hesitation. After that, he ignored them and walked in quickly. Bai Yan's group also strode forward. The battle hadn't started yet, but under the calm appearance, there was a smell of gunpowder. The leaders of both groups were calm and relaxed, but the cultivators under them were staring fiercely at the other group and rubbing their palms. "This is going to be interesting. I didn't expect Bai Yen to come too." "Commander, is Bai Yen very powerful?" "Nonsense, he dares to challenge Moling Takshu. How can he not be powerful? In the Earth celestial stage of the Divine Temple, Bai Yen is ranked 9th, one rank higher than Moling Takshu. However, this was the ranking before they came. Both of them got their positions by challenging the top 10 experts and didn't fight. It's hard to say who's stronger and who's weaker. If there are no accidents, the core palace here will definitely be obtained by the 2 of them. Even the 16 palaces in the 2nd circle have nothing to do with us. Damn it, after passing this stage, We'd rather spend 10 days to half a month running to a city area further away. As long as we don't encounter foreign tribes, it's still possible for us to get into the second group. This is a F*King group of death. 50 commanders, and now only 2 of the top 10 have appeared. How can they let others? F*Ck, it can't be, right? Just as this disciple was complaining gloomily, a group appeared at the city gate, neither too fast nor too slow, causing this guy to widen his eyes and mouth. What a sexy and beautiful woman. Haha, Commander, you're drooling, smack. Without any warning, the disciple who was widening his eyes and mouth slapped the back of the young man's head. F*Ck, do you want to die? Keep your voice down. At this time, without the commander saying anything, the cultivators beside him were already scared silly. F*Ck, that sexy and beautiful woman walked lightly, her beautiful eyes looking around. After she entered the city leisurely, there was a long tail behind her. In an instant there were already more than 100 people in sight, but it was as if there was no end, and they continued to swarm in continuously. Not to mention how powerful the sexy beauty was, just the number of people in the group was enough to scare people to death. At this moment, everyone was as silent as cicadas in winter. They stared blankly at the group that entered in a single file. They looked at that enchanting and seductive back, then counted the number of people who entered in a single file. When there were about 300 people, they finally reached the end. It was only when the sexy beauties group gradually moved further away and was about to disappear from everyone's sight that they realized that there were actually 30 temple disciples following behind the sexy beauty. It was not their fault that their eyes were not bright. It was just that the sexy beauty was too dazzling, so dazzling that it made all the cultivators within 100 feet of her lose their luster. As long as they looked at that figure, they would ignore everyone else around them. What did I just see? Oh my God! Hu Mei-nyang! It must be Hu Mei-nyang! What a powerful and terrifying group! Hu Mei-nyang! She is Hu Mei-nyang? Not only were the non-temple disciples shocked, but even the temple disciples were shocked. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 702. Hu Mei-nyang was only at the Earth celestial stage, but she was already a legendary figure in the Divine Temple. She was a peerless woman who ranked first in the vast universe galaxy's preliminary test. To most of the Divine Temple's genius disciples, she was rarely seen. Even during the special training before entering the primitive mystic realm, she did not appear. She did not participate in any of the Divine Temple's ranking competitions. Similarly, she did not hold any position in the primitive mystic realm. This was definitely not because she was a loner. It was because she befriended the Divine Temple's top geniuses. In the Divine Temple, when she occasionally appeared, she was usually with the Heaven's celestial stage geniuses. It was rumored that countless top geniuses had fallen for her. Although her combat strength was not on par with the Earth's celestial stage geniuses, no one dared to underestimate her. How could someone who could train with the Heaven's celestial stage geniuses be weak? This Hu Mei-nyang is indeed a natural seductress. Her peerless charm is unparalleled. Hu Mei-nyang is not just a natural seductress. It is said that she is the strongest saintess of the Misty Rain Tower in the past 100,000 years. She opened the Misty Rain Tower's ancestral inheritance that no one had opened for nearly 1,000,000 years and learned the lost Red Dust Heart Sutra. It can't be? Isn't the Red Dust Heart Sutra something that can only be cultivated by the innate Taoist embryo? Haha. That's why I said she's not just a natural seductress. I see. No wonder the Divine Temple's top geniuses want to befriend her. Whoever gets her will gain immeasurable benefits, not to mention the potential alliance. That's for sure. Other than the top geniuses of the top 10 sects, I'm afraid no one will catch her eye. Not only must they be talented and powerful, but they must also have a powerful background to meet the Misty Rain Tower's standards. In fact, although we can't get in touch with her, the top 10 Earth celestial stage geniuses are often invited by her. Let's go and take a look. I believe Bai Yen and Moling Takshu will not compete with her. At most, they will enter the core palace with her. Even if a legion commander comes, it won't cause any trouble. Let's see if we can join her team? Let's disband our team. Following her will definitely be more rewarding than leading a team alone. Even if the reward is not great, it's a pleasure to be able to see this peerless genius. Haha. That was exactly what he was thinking. No matter what, we are disciples of the Divine Temple. How can we not compare to the ordinary cultivators in their team? Let's go. Hu Mainyang's appearance caused an uproar among the surrounding cultivators. Some of the disciples of the temple chose to follow her, while others felt that no matter what, they had to leave this place. This was definitely a group of death. Following such a group of ferocious people would only bring them soup. Of course, most of these people were the stronger cultivators of the temple. Their strength was average, and they were just there to buy soy sauce wherever they went, so they had an indifferent attitude. Following such experts was not a bad thing. Most importantly, when they encountered the foreign army later on, they could also seek some protection. After going through the first 2 stages, everyone realized that this was a path of killing and seizing treasures. Even though they knew it was dangerous, it was hard to stop them. Even if they wanted to drink soup, they had to rush to the end to take a look. At least, it was better than staying where they were. When Hu Mainyang passed by the area where Chen Shui and the sisters were, it also caused Chen Shui and the others to be shocked. It was not because of Hu Mainyang's peerless beauty. She came from the Misty Rain Tower, was born with a natural charm, and cultivated the Red Dust Heart Sutra that only the founder of the Misty Rain Tower could cultivate. Her true body was definitely a beauty that could bring disaster to a country. However, in the eyes of Chen Shui and the other women, it was completely different from in the eyes of men. Especially for a peerless beauty like Chen Shui, at most, it was a sign of surprise. But in the eyes of men, it was very different. Chen Shui and the others were only surprised by the size of the team. It was not yet time to fight with the foreign army. How could such a large team be formed? But soon, Chen Shui and the other cultivators who were surprised by the size of the team discovered that most of the cultivators walking behind Hu Mainyang were following her on their own accord. This was because many disciples from the Holy Temple were red in the face. They walked to Hu Mainyang's side and recommended themselves with trembling voices. However, they were all rejected with a smile. What was even more surprising was that even if they were rejected, they did not leave and continued to follow behind Hu Mainyang. What made them even more speechless was that they were fighting for the position behind Hu Mainyang. The power of the Red Dust Heart Sutra and the Red Dust Heart Sutra was obvious. If not for the fact that everyone knew that this was not a seduction technique to confuse people's hearts, they would have avoided her from afar. This would not affect anyone's Tao heart, but it could subtly conquer your heart. Even if they knew the result, they would still follow her and gladly endure it. Strange, after a brief moment of shock, Chen Shui looked at Hu Mainyang again. Hu Mainyang moved gracefully but was not slow at all. After taking a closer look and sensing her, Chen Shui frowned slightly. Sister Shui, are these people's minds bewitched? It feels strange. Ling Ninglu asked softly when she saw Chen Shui frowning at the woman. However, Chen Shui did not seem to hear her. Sister Shui. Yes. You guys stay here. I'll go take a look. Chen Shui came back to her senses. Her figure flashed, and she quickly turned to the blind spot between the 2 palaces. A mysterious aura fluctuation flashed around her body, and her graceful and exquisite figure underwent a shocking change. Her blue dress casually pulled at her waist and chest a few times, and it turned into a blue Taoist robe. At the same time, a blue silk scarf appeared in her hand, and she tied up her hair. Little Shui, what are you doing? Venerable Immortal Han Mei followed behind her and asked, Mother, she has the Red Dust Heart Sutra and cultivated a powerful seduction technique. Don't worry, I won't do anything rash. Chen Shui lowered her voice and said, Are you sure? I'm sure. That aura can't be wrong. Venerable Immortal Han Mei frowned when she heard Chen Shui's words. Her heart felt as if it was being cut by a knife, and her eyes were instantly filled with tears. Unfortunately, she was clearly very sad, but she did not know why she was sad. She had personally extracted a memory from the past and condensed it into a soul crystal. That was the most painful memory, a memory that pierced through the heart. Even though it had been extracted from her soul and should have been free of it, at this moment, when she wanted to capture something, it inexplicably affected her. Mother. When Chen Shui saw her mother become like this, tears immediately appeared in her eyes, and she grabbed her mother's hand. Mother is fine. If it wasn't for the fact that I wanted to live a few more years and was afraid of losing too much cultivation, I should have erased all memories related to him. Mother, I didn't understand before, but now I understand. When you condensed a soul crystal, Hao had already given it to him. He saw it, so why was he so heartless and not looking for you? The past that even Chen Shui had almost forgotten or was unwilling to recall once again made Chen Shui feel intense hatred and dissatisfaction towards the father she had never met before. Especially when she thought that everything that happened to her and the other girls might have been arranged by that heartless father, she felt even more hatred. Don't blame him. After all, he is your father. Moreover, the soul crystal I condensed back then shattered my memories. I only wanted to tell him that we would never meet again. If he dares to treat me like that, then I dare. Venerable Han Mei's eyes flashed with a fierceness that Chen Shui had never seen before. However, when she spoke until here, her face suddenly turned pale and cold sweat dripped down. Even her voice became extremely weak, but she still insisted, Mother only has one request for you. Find a way to let Chen Hao subdue that innate Tao embryo. Mother, why do you want to do this? Mother doesn't know. In short, subduing him is helping Mother. Venerable Han Mei endured the intense pain from the depths of her soul and said. Just a few words almost caused her soul to collapse. Mother, don't ask Mother. There are many things that Mother can't say and don't know. I know you will doubt Mother's identity and Mother will doubt myself. Most of the time, it is the subconscious that controls everything. But you have to believe that Mother is right. Venerable Han Mei said strenuously. Her eyes even became pleading. Chen Shui looked at her mother's painful appearance and pleading eyes. At this moment, the hatred towards father suddenly disappeared. What was left was only confusion. Everything in front of her seemed to become illusory. Her mother was clearly in front of her, but it seemed to be very far away. She wanted to see clearly, but it was like looking at flowers in the fog. In her heart, it was as if a huge heavy mountain was pressing down on her, making her feel that it was unbearably heavy. Promise, Mother, okay? Venerable Han Mei's weak voice sounded absent-minded. Chen Shui nodded a little numbly. She immediately threw everything aside and turned away. Of all virtues, filial piety was the most important. She had heard about the innate Tao embryo from her mother because it was related to her. She was nurtured by her mother through heaven-defying means for 162 years. But now, she still couldn't be compared to the innate Tao embryo. Only when she surpassed the heavenly immortal realm and stepped into the Daluo Golden Wonderland could she become a true innate Tao embryo. The innate Tao embryo resonated with the myriad Tao and was doted on by the myriad Tao. If it was a true innate Tao embryo, the cultivation speed and talent would undoubtedly increase by leaps and bounds. However, this kind of person didn't pursue speed. Instead, they always suppressed their own realm and purposely gave themselves more time to cultivate a solid state of mind. This would lay the foundation for them to reach a higher realm after stepping into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. As for Chen Shui, who was nurtured by heaven-defying means and could only become a true innate Tao embryo in the Daluo Golden Wonderland, she wouldn't lose her innate talent. On the contrary, her state of mind would be better. When she sensed the aura of Hu Mainyang's innate Tao embryo, she wanted to go over and take a look. She knew how terrifying the innate Tao embryo was. Especially Hu Mainyang, who was identified by Chen Shui as a woman who cultivated a peerless seduction technique. She was even more terrifying. She was worried that Chen Hao would be bewitched like those cultivators who followed her. Similarly, even if Chen Hao wasn't bewitched, she was worried that Chen Hao's personality would conflict with hers. Moreover, not long ago, she saw Chen Lin following another expert like an underling, walking towards the core area. Chen Shui didn't know this fake disciple of the Divine Temple, but she heard the discussions of other cultivators. She knew that the master was called Moling Takshu, one of the top 10 Earth Immortals in the Divine Temple. She naturally knew that Moling Takshu was the commander of their army. She also heard from Long Ting that it was the sect that Bailey Ningbing belonged to. However, even so, she didn't go over. She was afraid of causing trouble and believed that Chen Hao could handle it. But now, with the appearance of the innate Tao embryo, Chen Shui had no choice but to go. However, she didn't expect her mother to give her such a mission. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 703. Chen Shui was depressed and confused. Although she had promised her mother, she did not know what to do at this moment. Let her man conquer a woman? For any woman, this was an extremely painful thing. More importantly, her mother just now was unfamiliar to her. Chen Shui did not know what kind of secret was hidden in that flash of a sharp gaze that she had never seen before. Her mother, her father whom she had never met, and her mother's twin sister, what kind of existence were they? What did they have to do with each other? What kind of existence was Hu Mainyang, with her innate Taoist fetus? What was the relationship between her mother and the others? Chen Shui could not figure it out and could not understand. She felt vaguely uneasy. She had promised her mother, but what should she do? If she did, would it be right or wrong? Suddenly, a heavy sigh sounded in Chen Shui's mind. Who is it? Chen Shui, who had just bypassed the palace, stopped abruptly and stood rooted to the ground. All of his consciousness was sucked into his mind by a mysterious force. Don't be nervous, it's me. Senior? Where are you? Hearing the other person's reply, Chen Shui immediately recognized the familiar voice. It was the mysterious senior who had occasionally appeared to guide her during the years she was under house arrest. In your mind, it's just a wisp of my primordial spirit. You. Chen Shui looked at the gradually clear image of the senior in her mind and was speechless. She had seen him many times, but she had never seen his face. Now, she finally saw it clearly. She had thought that they would meet one day, but she did not expect to meet him like this. My daughter, don't blame your father, you will understand in the future. Following Chen Hai's words, Chen Shui's mind was shrouded in a dazzling and mysterious light. There was a brief moment of blankness. Everything that had just happened with her mother did not leave any trace in Chen Shui's mind. Only a moment later, Chen Shui suddenly sobered up. It was as if her mind had suddenly wandered and she had forgotten what she was thinking. Chen Shui shook her head. Holding on to her initial worries and thoughts about Chen Hao, she unhurriedly followed Hu Mainyang and the huge group that followed behind her. Chen Lin? Moling Takshu? Chen Hao sat cross-legged in front of one of the 16 massive palaces around the core palace. His entire being seemed to have become one with the world as he continued to comprehend the final stages of the third hex. Long Ting, who was guarding him, sat cross-legged beside him leisurely. The sound of footsteps attracted her attention. What Long Ting did not expect was to see Chen Lin and Moling Takshu, who had once helped Bailey Ningbing snatch the sacred artifact from her. Not good, Long Ting frowned slightly. If it were anyone else it would be fine, but these two were enemies on a narrow road. Not to mention Moling Takshu, even Chun Lin, who had been humiliated by Chen Hao, would probably have to rely on his current power to get back at him. It's them. Sure enough, in just an instant, Chen Hao and Long Ting entered everyone's line of sight. It couldn't be helped. So far, only Chen Hao and Long Ting had occupied one of the entrances of the core palace and the 16 second palaces. It was truly eye-catching. When Chen Lin saw the two of them, he also revealed a trace of surprise. Then, his eyes flashed with sharpness and viciousness. He turned his head and whispered a few words to Moling Takshu, who was walking in the middle. He was calm and collected, as if he did not care about anything. He only stared at Moling Takshu, who was the largest palace in the core, and frowned slightly. Then, he looked at Long Ting and Chen Hao. In the end, his gaze locked onto Chen Hao, who was cultivating. After a full 2 seconds, he gave an order and no longer paid attention to him. Chen Lin snorted coldly in the direction of Long Ting and Chen Hao. His eyes were contemptuous. He turned his head and did not say anything for the time being. His expression showed that he did not take Chen Hao and Long Ting seriously at all. Brother Moling, how about we decide the victor in one battle? The winner will obtain the core palace and 8 of the 16 palaces. Whoever comes later, we'll work together. I don't think anyone will dare to fight for it. Bai Yen stood with his hands behind his back. He stopped and said with a confident smile. The two sides, with Bai Yen and Moling Takshu in the lead, formed a situation where they faced each other on the left and right. At this moment, without waiting for Moling Takshu to reply, a dense crowd appeared at the back of the huge main road. Ah! No one knew who was the first to discover it and cried out in surprise. Then, everyone sucked in a cold breath and looked behind. Even Moling Takshu and Bai Yen were no exception. Their expressions changed instantly. This scene was extremely strange. They were thousands of meters away. Under the 9 seals of immortality, although their senses were poor, there was no reason for them not to be able to sense any movement. They only discovered it now because the dense crowd behind them was too quiet. No one made a sound. They clustered around a sexy and graceful figure, advancing slowly. There were only small and light footsteps. Hu Meinyang? Moling Takshu and Bai Yen frowned at first, then their brows relaxed. Their eyes shone with a bright light at the same time. They stared blankly at Hu Meinyang, who was leisurely approaching like an immortal and made the world lose its color. The two groups that had been aggressive just now all widened their eyes at this moment. They stared straight at the huge group behind them. Although the vast majority of people did not know who had come, no one was not shocked by Hu Meinyang's figure. Of course, the vast majority of people were even more shocked by the huge group behind Hu Meinyang then, as Hu Meinyang approached, everyone's gazes were attracted. No matter if it was young men, middle-aged men, or even the elderly, they all stared blankly at Hu Meinyang. It was as if Hu Meinyang's smiling figure was the only thing left in the world. What happened? Long Ting, who was at the innermost corner, was also shocked by the strange appearance of Moling Takshu and the others. Could it be that someone even more powerful has come? Long Ting thought to herself. She looked at Chen Hao, who was still immersed in comprehension, and shook her head. She could sense that Chen Hao had completely integrated into the law of heaven. She believed that in a few days, he would be able to break through the third hex and open the palace. She also did not encounter any strong competition. However, the situation this time was far beyond Long Ting's expectations. However, Long Ting felt strange in her heart. She had not seen the person who had come, so there was no doubt that it was a powerhouse. Otherwise, Moling Takshu and Bai Yen would not have such expressions. However, everyone was either dazed or silent. It was too strange. Miss Hu, I didn't expect to meet you here. Bai Yen took a step forward to welcome her. His expression, eyes, and tone seemed to have changed in an instant. There was undisguised excitement and adoration in his eyes. "Miss Hu, it's a pleasure to meet you." Moling Takshu frowned and glanced at Bai Yin. She also smiled and went forward to welcome her, not to be outdone. Both of them were young geniuses in the top 10 of the Earth celestial stage and knew Hu Mainyang. They had been won over by Hu Mainyang long ago and had endless fantasies about her. "Brother Bai, Brother Moling, nice to meet you." Hu Mainyang smiled and glanced at the two of them with her bright eyes. "Miss Hu, these people are." Bai Yin looked at the countless young cultivators behind Hu Mainyang and asked. "Mainyang is alone. They want to follow me." Hu Mainyang smiled slightly. Her voice was obviously charming, but it gave people a feeling of emptiness. It was very pleasant to the ears. Hearing Hu Mainyang's words, Moling Takshu and Bai Yin were relieved at the same time. "That's easy. Miss Hu, when I win the ownership of the core palace, I will invite Miss Hu together." Moling Takshu said first. Do you have that ability?" Bai Yin frowned and looked at Moling Takshu provocatively. Then he looked at Hu Mainyang and said, "Miss Hu, as long as you like it, the core palace and the 16 halls are all yours. I believe that none of the friends here have any objections, right?" "I, Bai Yin, will be the first to protect you, Miss Hu." "You!" Moling Takshu was so angry at Bai Yin that she vomited blood. "Brother Bai, you're too serious. Mainyang only needs to enter the core palace. Since both of you are allowing Mainyang to enter, then Mainyang will go first." No one expected Hu Mainyang to say this. After she finished speaking, she cupped her fists slightly at Moling Takshu and Bai Yin. Then she walked toward the core palace with light steps that seemed slow but was actually fast. Before she arrived, Hu Mainyang's body suddenly shone with a tricolored light. In an instant, the surrounding heavenly Tao law and the energy of heaven and earth fluctuated violently. Chi. In an instant, a tricolored pillar of light shrouded the door of the core palace. Creak. Rumble. The door opened with a rumble. Hu Mainyang entered directly and disappeared in a flash. "Ah! It's open. Go in." No one expected Hu Mainyang, who had just arrived, to have already comprehended the third hex and opened the door directly. At this moment, the cultivators who had been following Hu Mainyang wanted to follow her without hesitation. "All of you, stop right there. If you don't want to die, scram." Moling Takshu and Bai Yin shouted almost at the same time. They were shocked by Hu Mainyang's terror. However, if they allowed everyone to enter at this time, what would happen? There was no need for discussion. The two of them agreed without prior consultation. The members of their team also tried to surround and stop them. However, although no one provoked them verbally, the huge crowd attacked directly. The law could not punish the masses. Moreover, Moling Takshu and Bai Yin were not the law. How could they stop hundreds of thousands of people? "You're courting death." Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, a chaotic battle broke out. However, there were too many people rioting. How could they stop them? In an instant, the door of the core palace was crushed. Countless people rushed in. Although Moling Takshu and Bai Yin were enraged, it was already impossible for them to obtain the core treasure by themselves now. "Don't stop them. Charge in." Almost at the same time, the two of them gave the order and rushed into the palace in a flash. The treasures that appeared on the second floor of the core palace were ancient supreme-grade spirit treasures. If there were no surprises, there should be a primordial divine artifact treasure on this floor. How could they give it up? To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 704. Long Ting was dumbfounded. She did not expect a woman to have such a terrifying influence. She had even comprehended the third hex. This Hu Mainyang is not simple. "Little Shui, why are you here?" Long Ting asked Chen Shui. When Humaingyang appeared, Chen Shui had quietly come to their side. She only paid attention to the situation and did not say anything. What's going on? The loud shouts and fighting finally woke Chen Hao up. What entered his eyes was the extremely chaotic scene in front of the core palace. Someone actually comprehended it? Little Shui, what are you doing? When Chen Hao woke up, he instantly frowned when he saw the handsome and valiant Chen Shui. It's a mess here. I was worried, so I came to take a look, Chen Shui said. She naturally could not say that she was worried Chen Hao would be bewitched by the demon. What's there to worry about? Hurry up and change back. I want to slap you when I see you like this. Chen Hao glared at Chen Shui. Although he knew that this was Chen Shui's unique ability, he was still not used to it. What do you plan to do? Chen Shui frowned and glared at Chen Hao. Chun Lin, Moling Takshu, and a legion commander called Bai Yan are all very strong. There's an even stronger Humaingyang. Who is Humaingyang? Chen Hao frowned slightly. He still had the advantage in terms of perception under the 9 seals. When he entered the city, he heard that Chun Lin and Moling Takshu might be coming here. Therefore, he was not surprised. Chen Shui's emphasis on Humaingyang made him more concerned. She's a legendary existence in the Divine Temple, the holder of the highest score in the vast universe galaxy's second world. She was the one who comprehended the third hex and opened the core palace. Long Ting said. Chen Shui wanted to say something, but she held back and did not say anything. After all, if she reminded Chen Hao not to be bewitched, she would be too petty. Moreover, from Humaingyang's seemingly courteous behavior just now, she did not put Moling Takshu and Bai Yan in her eyes at all. It seemed unlikely that she would have any interaction with Chen Hao. What do you plan to do? What else can we do? Regardless of who it was, since the core palace had been opened and the situation had become chaotic, it was only natural that they would have to fight for it. This time, it might even be a saint artifact from the primordial era. However, I want to go in. I want to enter too. Will it be dangerous for you to go in? Chen Hao said. Even when you weren't around, we were still training. Besides, it's chaotic now. With so many people going in, no one will dare to act rashly. It's fine if we don't go with you, said Chen Shui. All right. Call Huan, Lei Lei, and the others to go in and cultivate. I'll take care of the rest. Big Brother Hao, you have to be careful of that Humaingyang. Don't fall into her trap, Long Ting said without even thinking. Follow her orders. That's right, you didn't see it just now. I had only heard about it in the Divine Temple and didn't believe it at all. But after seeing it just now, I have no choice but to believe it. Rumor has it that Humaingyang was born with a seductive bone. Moreover, she has the legendary innate Tao embryo. Her strength is unfathomable. She is the current generation's holy maiden of the Misty Rain Tower. Have you heard of the Misty Rain Tower? When Chen Shui heard Long Ting say this, she secretly rejoiced. The silly Long Ting was truly too cute. It was undoubtedly the most appropriate thing for her to say. Chen Hao definitely wouldn't think too much about it because in the hearts of everyone, Long Ting was an existence that didn't have any taboos. They didn't dare to do what they were embarrassed to do, and they didn't dare to say what they were embarrassed to say. Cough cough. I've heard of this. Don't worry, besides all of you, no one in this world can bewitch me. When he heard Long Ting say this, Chen Hao spoke confidently. After he finished speaking, he looked at Chen Shui, who seemed to have heaved a sigh of relief and said, Little Shui, I was wondering why you hesitated to speak earlier. Look at little sister Ting, she can just say whatever she wants to say. Why are you being so courteous with me? I didn't. Chen Shui, who was rejoicing, didn't expect that she would give herself away and be exposed by Chen Hao's words. A wisp of red appeared on her valiant and formidable face. Chen Hao's entire body shuddered when he saw this. I'll go in first. Little Shui, from today onwards, you must never appear before me with this face. Otherwise, I'll have a psychological barrier. Hiss, hiss, hiss. At the instant Chen Hao charged into the palace, a pressure that seemed material covered the sky and covered the earth, pressed down on his body. The scene in front of him changed in an instant. Almost 1,000 people appeared before him. Some had a relaxed expression, and some were drenched in sweat and desperately resisting the pressure as they slowly advanced. This won't do. The pressure of the Tao law in the core palace is actually so terrifying. Brother Lan, I have to stop and comprehend. I'm unable to advance. Yes, don't force yourself. In any case, we don't have the qualifications to fight for anything. It's fine as long as we can cultivate here. This is a rare opportunity. Yes, Brother Lan, don't worry about me. If you can advance, then continue forward. Under the enormous pressure, Chen Hao seemed to be taking a leisurely stroll as he caught up with the crowd in front of him. The two cultivators who were talking widened their eyes in shock, and then they hurriedly turned their heads to avoid Chen Hao. The person who had a calm expression earlier clenched his fists nervously, and even his breathing became hurried. We meet again? We're really fated. What do you want? Lan Feng asked nervously. Ever since he had entered the 9 restrictions of celestial sealing, he had been ravaged by Chen Hao for the first time, robbed of all his rootless fruits, and beaten up until he was half crippled. Lan Feng was extremely dissatisfied, and he had madly cultivated in an attempt to get back at Chen Hao. Moreover, he was quite lucky. In less than half a month, he had entered a cave abode that was better than the spiritual spring lake for cultivation. What made him feel even more fortunate was that he had coincidentally bumped into Chen Hao and the others in the first Forbidden City. Unfortunately, his joy had once again turned into a cruel reality. He was defeated by Chen Hao alone. Not only did Chen Hao rob him of his Dharma treasures and spiritual herbs, but he also slapped him until he was swollen like a pig's head. At that time, although he was dissatisfied, he knew he had no chance of getting back at Chen Hao in the 9 restrictions of celestial sealing. Moreover, after being defeated twice in a row, he had lost his prestige, and his team had been utterly defeated. More tragically, in the second Forbidden City, he, who had always been cautious, had miserably bumped into Chen Hao again and was robbed of everything. He did not expect to bump into Chen Hao again here. Was there anything more tragic than this? Don't be nervous. This sword is not bad. It's actually a supreme-grade spiritual treasure? Lan Feng's expression was extremely unsightly, and his voice trembled as he spoke. The surrounding cultivators also turned to look at Lan Feng. Do you think you can keep it? This is an ancient supreme-grade spiritual treasure. I'm doing this for your own good. I'll keep it safe for you. Chen Hao had a smile on his face as he stretched out his hand in an ostentatious manner. It was as though he was very concerned about Lan Feng. However, in Lan Feng's eyes, it was the smile of a devil. An ancient supreme-grade spiritual treasure? Isn't that something that can only be found in the 2nd level of the palace? Not necessarily. People with great providence can also obtain heaven-defying Dharma treasures and inheritances. This disciple from the Divine Temple is not simple. I can't tell it's a supreme-grade spiritual treasure. That guy is obviously trying to rob us. He must have said that on purpose, right? Who is he? I think I saw him meditating in front of the 16 great palaces with a female disciple from the Divine Temple. Even the disciples from the Divine Temple are afraid of him. It's Chen Hao, the most powerful person in the East Flow Division. Although the surrounding people were under pressure, they still began to discuss among themselves. Many of them even recognized Chen Hao. This is the last time. Let's call it quits. I apologize to you. Lan Feng's face turned green and white as he spoke in an extremely stifled manner. Hand over the treasured sword. Chen Hao smiled slightly and beckoned with his finger. Agree first. Sigh, underling Lan, I'm not trying to nag you, but I'm doing this for your own good. Look, how many people are eyeing your treasured sword. It's a supreme grade spiritual treasure, and an ancient grade one at that. Don't you know that a man's wealth is his own ruin? You. If you don't say it, who will know that it's a supreme grade spiritual treasure? Lan Feng was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. Really? Chern Hao did not stand on ceremony. With a flash of his body, he reached out and snatched the treasured sword from Lan Feng. Lan Feng wanted to resist, but he forcibly held himself back. Of course, under the immense pressure of the Tao laws in the palace, he could not resist. At the same time, Chern Hao's lightning-fast movements made him even more aware that this demon was too terrifying. If you have any more treasures, remember to give them to me. I'll take care of them for you. No one will dare to touch them. Chern Hao held the treasured sword with both hands. He unsheathed the sword a little, and it emitted a cold and sharp aura. He closed the sword with satisfaction and said with a smile. After he finished speaking, he walked forward as if nothing had happened. The surrounding people were a little dumbfounded and stunned at this moment. Those who did not walk forward did not want to, but they could not. Even if they could, it would be difficult for them to walk forward. What about Chern Hao? Lan Feng angrily glared at Chern Hao. He looked as if he was about to vomit blood, but in his heart, he rejoiced that he had encountered Chern Hao in the core palace in public. Otherwise, the treasured sword would not have been the only thing stolen. However, after a while, when everyone was no longer looking at Lan Feng, he suddenly let out a miserable scream like a pig being slaughtered. He groped around all over his body as if he had lost the most precious thing he had. Could this kid be the son of destiny? This thing must be a treasure. As Chern Hao walked, he sensed the almond-sized silver ball in his hand. Waves of Tao laws flowed into Chern Hao's body like a clear spring. Although he was embarrassed to look at it in public, Chern Hao was certain that this was a treasure. In his heart, he was full of admiration for Lan Feng's luck. The things he had robbed the last 2 times were not inferior to what he had robbed in the 2 core palaces. This time, just the treasured sword alone was very awesome. The silver ball that he had casually stolen seemed even better. It's a pity that there are too many people. I don't want to search them. Under the circumstances of the 9 restrictions of Immortal Sealing, although they had broken through 2 levels and gained some magic power and divine consciousness, none of the cultivators had been able to open their storage rings, let alone the space in their minds. Otherwise, Chern Hao would not have been able to steal so easily. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidien.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 705. This Chern Hao is so relaxed. Could he have completely comprehended the 3rd hex? It can't be that coincidental, right? Before we came in, he was still cultivating outside. If he had comprehended it, why wouldn't he open it first? He definitely hasn't comprehended it. He's so relaxed because his physical body is freakish. You all saw it in the battle for the core palace of the 2nd forbidden area. He basically used his physical strength to defeat Lu Fingnan's 100-man team. Look, he's stopped. Chern Hao, who was strolling forward leisurely, attracted the attention of all the cultivators in the hall. Even Moling Takshu, Bai Yen, Chen Lin, and the others, who were sitting cross-legged at the front, were shocked. They felt slightly comforted when they saw that Chern Hao had suddenly stopped before overtaking them. Clearly, Chern Hao was relying on his freakishly powerful fleshly body to withstand the terrifying pressure. Although he seemed relaxed, he still hadn't fully comprehended the 3rd hex. However, what? Before Moling Takshu, Bai Yen, and the others could let out a sigh of relief, Chern Hao, who had stopped, suddenly looked at the silver ball he had taken from Lan Feng with a little surprise. With the silver ball as the core, the surrounding space suddenly began to ripple violently. All the fragments of the heavenly Tao that could not be seen or touched actually began to strangely flash with a faint light at this moment, quickly converging towards the silver ball. The Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core? The Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core. It must be the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core. Bai Yen and Moling Takshu blurted out in shock. What's the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core? Someone in the crowd could not help but ask. This is the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core? I've heard of it before. The Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core, as the name suggests, is the seed of the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit. Just like the connate Tao embryo that can resonate with the great Tao, the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core can absorb the Tao nomological fragments between heaven and earth to grow. Cultivators can directly consume it and plant it in their dantian to obtain the Tao nomological fragments contained within. At the same time, the cultivator can also nourish the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit. There are many benefits, a knowledgeable cultivator in the crowd said in shock. It can be consumed and planted in the dantian? Chen Hao, who was still in shock and confusion, suddenly turned to look at the cultivator who spoke and asked. Of course. When the cultivator heard Chen Hao's question, he said with certainty, I just don't know what the level of the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit is. However, the lowest level is Daluo Jinxian's level. Moling Takshu and Bai Yan's faces turned green. Mine, that's mine. Chen Hao, give it back to me. Lan Feng, who was struggling to move forward under the immense pressure, lost control of his emotions and roared at the top of his lungs. Lan Feng? What's going on? Tell me the truth. I, Bai Yan, will uphold justice for you. Chen Hao, right? You'd better not act rashly before things are cleared up. Otherwise, I don't mind cutting your stomach open. Humph, Bai Yan, aren't you meddling too much? Blue Peak belongs to my Moling Snowwalk Corps. It's not up to you to control it. Lan Feng, tell me what happened. I, Moling Takshu, will uphold justice for you. No one dares to bully the commander under me. Moling Takshu coldly snorted and said. Her gaze was even colder as she looked at Chen Hao. Hiss. As soon as the two of them finished speaking, a fluctuation suddenly came from the restriction covered with rune Tao marks at the front. A figure leisurely walked out. Even Chen Hao could not help but look over. Amidst the milky white light emitted by the runes, it was as if an immortal had descended. Slender jade legs, a slender waist, a pair of proud peaks, snow-white skin, a peerlessly beautiful face, bright eyes and white teeth. Accompanied by her fluttering beautiful hair, she emanated a breathtaking beauty that was filled with a myriad of enchanting and amorous feelings. She was obviously charming to the bone, yet extremely pure and holy. Every single frown, smile, and action of hers was in harmony with the Tao. Even though Chen Hao had been mentally prepared, he was still extremely shocked when he saw this woman. This is the innate Taoist embryo? It's really powerful, Chen Hao thought to himself. His keen perception could clearly sense the strength of this woman. Especially when she smiled and looked directly at him, Chen Hao could not help but narrow his eyes. It was not a seduction technique, but it was even better. Although Chen Hao clearly felt that his mind did not show the slightest sign of being bewitched, he still could not resist the woman's flirtatious aura. She was like a monarch descending to the world. The moment she appeared, she seized the heavens and earth, and became the only light in the world. The Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core? Hu Mainyang's unexpected return interrupted the hostility caused by the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core. She stared at the silver ball blooming with light in Chen Hao's hand and gently opened her delicate lips. Her charming voice was like the sound of nature. It really is. Can you let Mainyang take a look? Hearing Hu Mainyang's words, everyone looked at Chen Hao. Moling Takshu and Bai Yan frowned slightly. Hu Mainyang's appearance was not something they were happy to see. Both of them were top geniuses and were subdued by Hu Mainyang's peerless demeanor and background, but in the face of this supreme treasure that could definitely cause a sensation in the vast universe galaxy, they could not simply give it away. Of course, the premise was that they knew that it was extremely difficult to obtain Hu Mainyang's favor. It could be said that there was no hope at all. Otherwise, any price would be worth it. It's mine. It's mine. Chen Hao, give it back to me. The brief silence was broken by the crazy Lan Feng who had slammed himself to death. Blood was coming out of his mouth, but he moved forward quickly, almost rolling and crawling. When this guy had obtained the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core, he had concluded that it was an incomparably miraculous treasure. This was because every time he cultivated, he could feel the fragments of the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core surging into his body. Now, he had comprehended the limit of the third hex and was just a little bit away from completely comprehending and breaking through. With his aptitude, such speed was absolutely inconceivable. After all, apart from Hu Mainyang, who had a connate Tao manifestation, no one present had completely comprehended the third hex. It was because of this that he had let out a shrill and miserable scream after Chen Hao had taken away the fruit core. However, when he thought of how terrifying Chen Hao was, he could only let it go. However, just now, when the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core had been activated in an environment where Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core was densely packed with Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core, he could no longer control himself and completely disregarded the consequences. Didn't you see it? Chen Hao narrowed his eyes and said indifferently. Hu Mainyang's eyes suddenly lit up. She wanted to say something but stopped. Then, she smiled. Unfortunately, Chen Hao turned his head and did not look at her again. This made Hu Mainyang feel as if she had hit the air. The other cultivators, including Moling Takshu and Bai Yen, were slightly surprised. Even though they knew that Chen Hao would definitely not let go of such a heaven-defying treasure easily, they did not expect him to reject it so cleanly without any hesitation. Chen Hao looked at Lan Feng and said, "Little brother Lan, are you stupid? You can't even keep a supreme-grade spirit treasure. Do you dare to eat this thing? I don't even dare to eat it. Didn't you hear someone say that he doesn't mind eating his guts out with me? If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation." Chapter 706. I don't care. Give it to me. I've already apologized to you, and you've already taken everything. This fruit core belongs to me. You can't take it. Or else. Or else what? Humans die in pursuit of wealth, and birds die in pursuit of food. I remember you once told me that strength is the most important thing. The first time we were fighting, and the second time you wanted to take revenge. Just based on this, I can kill you. You're still not satisfied with using something to pay for your life? Chen Hao's eyes suddenly shone with a sharp light as he stared at Lan Feng. Even if he didn't know what it was, Chen Hao had no reason to return it to Lan Feng. If you respect me, I'll respect you tenfold. A drop of water should be repaid with a spring. Otherwise, of course, I'll repay it tenfold. You cut off one of my arms and I cut off the other. How can I make up for my loss? What a joke. Chen Hao was already merciful to Lan Feng. The first time he fought with this guy for the rootless spirit fruit, he was right. Strength was everything. The second time they met in the Forbidden City, this guy still wanted revenge. Based on this, Chen Hao could kill him without breaking the rules. All he did was take some treasures from him. Was that not merciful enough? Later, he was merciful again. This time, this guy really thought he was a good citizen. You, what about you? Get lost. If you keep blabbering, I'll chop you up. I'll let you know how many eyes Prince Chen has. Chen Hao said coldly. How can this be? Chen Shui, Long Ting, and the others had just arrived. They saw the tense scene as soon as they entered. Originally, They were not worried about Chen Hao. After all, his body that could evolve on its own was definitely strong. However, after seeing Moling Takshu, Bai Yen, and the unfathomable Hu Meinyang, they were not so sure anymore. After all, although Chen Hao's body could evolve on its own, it could only evolve to the strongest state of each restriction. When the binding of the 9 restrictions of immortal sealing reached a critical point, it would stop. Don't expose yourselves. Don't come near. Move aside. I'll go over first, Long Ting said sternly. No, you don't go over too. Let's observe the situation first. If there's really no other way, then we'll just go all out. Chen Shui pulled Long Ting and said, Xiao Shui, I'm fine. I know you're strong, but you won't be able to withstand their numbers. Let's see what Hao does first, then we'll make a decision. Let's get closer and prepare for a surprise attack. Chen Shui said with a dignified expression, and then looked at Pan Dong Lu and Pan Dong Sheng. You, Sister Shui, our lives belong to Big Brother Chen Hao. Fan Dongxing interrupted Chen Shui in a low but firm voice. Although flowing eastward did not speak, there was no fear in his eyes. Putting aside the fact that Chen Hao had saved their lives, even if he hadn't, they were well aware of how Chen Hao had treated them in the past 2 years. There was no reason to retreat at this time. Moreover, the more he interacted with them, the more he realized that Chen Hao and the others were not simple. Not to mention anything else, just Chen Shui's name was officially Chen Xiaobai, which was very shocking. Also, Venerable Han Mei, Venerable Yunwei, and the sisters were not from the same army, but they were able to gather together in the sect ruins, which was even more incredible. Moreover, they also knew that the 3 immortals who had opened many of the forbidden areas of the 9 restrictions of immortal sealing were also Chen Hao's Dao companions. However, they had already changed their appearances and were enduring a huge pressure to quietly cover the crowd. Get lost. I told you to get lost, didn't you hear me? Get out. Chen Hao pointed at Lan Feng's nose and then pointed at the exit and said angrily. The others did not understand, but Chen Hao's gaze towards the exit and his words made Chen Shui and the others understand. But at this moment, they did not obey Chen Hao. Humph, how arrogant! Do you know how precious this Dao manifestation immortal fruit core is? Brother Lan Feng just had a conflict with you over the treasure, and you want to kill him? If you know what's good for you, hand over the Dao manifestation immortal fruit. Get out of here. Otherwise, I don't mind upholding justice for Brother Lan Feng and letting you bleed. Give it to me. Bai Yen took a step forward and walked in front of Lan Feng, releasing an extremely powerful aura as he stared coldly at Chen Hao. Bai Yen, I've said before that Lan Feng is a member of my army, and so is Chen Hao. This matter should naturally be handled by me. Chen Hao, give it to me. Chi. Moling Takshu's aura instantly soared, and she also took a step forward and stood in front of Chen Hao, ordering him around in a condescending manner. This was already a flea on a monk's head. Such a far-fetched and overbearing reason was nothing more than wanting to obtain the Dao manifestation immortal fruit core. When everyone saw this scene, they could only sympathize with Lan Feng and Chen Hao. No matter what, the 2 of them would not be able to keep this treasure. However, everyone present had already seen Chen Hao's freakish strength under the enormous pressure just now, and they had more or less heard about the terrifying combat strength that Chen Hao had displayed on the first 2 levels. Therefore, no one could be sure what Chen Hao would do. Brother Moling, Brother Bai, Meinyang has a connate Taoist embryo, and this Dao manifestation immortal fruit core is very important to Meinyang. Of course, Meinyang will not get it for free. No matter who obtains it, Meinyang will try to give you satisfactory conditions in exchange. How about it? Of course, if you don't agree, then Meinyang can also interfere. This thing is very important to Meinyang. Hu Meinyang's voice was still as melodious as the sounds of nature, but the content of her words had completely changed, revealing a fox's tale. His words were better than any song. She took care of Moling Takshu and Bai Yan's pride, and also showed her determination and strength to obtain the Tao manifestation, immortal fruit core. Upon hearing this, Chun Hao was furious. F*ck, a woman's heart was the most vicious. As expected, she was concerned about Moling Takshu and Bai Yan's background and looked down on Chun Hao. It was as if the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core was already something that belonged to Moling Takshu or Bai Yan in front of such a heaven-defying treasure, Hu Meinyang no longer concealed her determination to obtain it. She, who had completely comprehended the third hex, had already entered the interior of the palace and begun to break through and comprehend it. The reason she had come out was because she had heard the commotion outside. If she could obtain the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core, even if it was the lowest grade one, it would complement her, and her cultivation and comprehension speed would be astonishingly increased. Although she felt that Chun Hao was not simple, she did not think that Chun Hao could contend with Moling Takshu and Bai Yan. She did not care about people like Chun Hao who did not have a background. Chun Hao wanted to fly into a rage immediately, but when he sensed the auras of the three people, as well as Chun Hao and the others who had surrounded him, he could only endure it for now. He looked at Moling Takshu and then at Bai Yan, as if hesitating about who to give it to. However, Bai Yan and Moling Takshu were not looking at him at this moment. Instead, they frowned and looked at Hu Meinyang, who had spoken in a domineering manner. After a slight hesitation, Moling Takshu said first, "Since Miss Hu has said so, I will not refuse you. Miss Hu, since you like it, I'll get it for you. As for compensation, we can discuss it." Bai Yan smiled slightly, looking as if he had Moling Takshu under control. "Then how will you compensate me? How about this, let's not talk nonsense. I can't give this to you for free. If you insist on snatching it, I'll eat it and bite it to pieces." "Bite it to pieces? Why don't you try biting it? What do you think the immortal fruit core is? Idiot!" Bai Yan said disdainfully. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 707. Chen Hao's face darkened as he cursed in his heart. If it was just Bai Yan, he would have slapped him long ago. Similarly, if Chen Shui and the others were not here, Chen Hao would definitely fly into a rage. However, he could only temporarily suppress his anger and said, "Then who should I give it to? As long as I hand over the immortal fruit core, can you guarantee my safety? Give it to me. I, Moling Takshu, guarantee your safety. Whoever dares to touch you will be touching me. What's the point? Moling Takshu, I think it's better for us to fight it out and decide who it belongs to." Bai Yan said disdainfully. "Do you think I'm afraid of you? Do you really think you can defeat me just because you're ranked 9th? Come on." Boom! Moling Takshu said sternly. Under the huge pressure, a peerlessly fierce aura bloomed around him. Chi! Bai Yan snorted coldly as his aura suddenly soared. At this moment, Chun Lin suddenly frowned and shouted, "Brother Moling, you mustn't." "Chun Lin, what are you doing?" Moling Takshu rebuked angrily. "Brother Moling, Brother Bai Yan, don't underestimate this boy Chun Hao. He's very strong, and he has no intention of handing over the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core. Look at him, where's the slightest bit of fear? He's only doing this because he wants to reap the benefits of both of you fighting each other. Get out of the way. Do you think we're idiots who can't tell?" Bai Yan said disdainfully, "He's just an ant. Our fight is to snatch. Give it to me." Chi. What surprised Chun Hao was that Bai Yan and Moling Takshu were not idiots. Perhaps it was because of Chun Lin's reminder that Bai Yan charged toward him at lightning speed. Clearly, he wanted to snatch the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core first. However, Chun Hao did not panic at all. He did not even move. How arrogant! Clang! The sword on Moling Takshu's back suddenly shot out. A cold sword light accompanied by a terrifying immortal sword intent swept through the world in an instant. One sword shot towards Bai Yen, while the other hand contained a mysterious and ancient aura as it grabbed towards Chen Hao. Although the surrounding cultivators knew that the battle between Moling Takshu and Bai Yen would be exceptionally terrifying, they did not expect that the aura released by the 9 restrictions of immortal sealing would be so frightening right from the start. Frightened, they retreated one after another. Even an expert like Chun Lin felt his hair stand on end and took a few steps back. Bai Yen clearly knew that Moling Takshu would not let him do as he wished. The hand that reached for Chun Hao was just a feint. The moment Moling Takshu's sword arrived, a resplendent saber light suddenly soared into the sky. All of his power was concentrated on the heavy saber. Ding ding ding. Rumble. Moling Takshu originally wanted to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, but he did not expect Bai Yen to be so sinister. The violent energy made him retreat a few steps. He waved his sword with all his strength to block, but he was still shaken to the point that his chi and blood were in turmoil. He was at a disadvantage. However, before Moling Takshu could regain his composure, a scream exploded from Bai Yan's roar. Moling Takshu, who saw this scene at close range, felt his hair stand on end. All the onlookers gasped and widened their eyes. They could not believe what they were seeing, even Hu Mainyang, who was indifferent and waiting to reap the fruits of others' labor, narrowed her eyes. No one expected, only Chun Lin, who had come into contact with Chen Hao, had a premonition. However, he did not expect Chen Hao to be so daring. Puff! The cold silver sword light was like a shooting star that streaked across the sky. It was extremely fast, ruthless, and unbelievably sharp. It pierced through Bai Yan's shoulder in an extremely tricky manner. Chen Hao, who wanted to kill Bai Yen with 1 strike, had to admit that Bai Yen, who was ranked 9th in the Divine Temple, had a reaction speed that exceeded his expectations. He actually managed to twist his body in the nick of time to avoid the fatal blow. At the same time, he frantically withdrew his saber, changed direction, changed hands and chopped with all his might. It was done in one go without any hesitation. This was the only way to save his life. Chen Hao's sword had pierced through Bai Yan's shoulder. If he wanted to slash Bai Yan horizontally, he would definitely not be able to avoid Bai Yan's saber, which was enough to split Chen Hao in half. He was trading his life for his life. Everyone was shocked by this scene. They were shocked by Chen Hao's silent sneak attack and terrifying strength. They were even more shocked by Chen Hao's daring. That was definitely a sneak attack that would kill in 1 strike. Not to mention whether Chen Hao had the strength to kill Bai Yen. Even if he did, he should not have dared to kill Bai Yen. Bai Yen and Moling Takshu had openly bullied Chen Hao and said that he would not hand over the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core. It was not a bad idea to kill him. Although it was against morality, fighting for treasures was based on strength. Just like what Chen Hao had said to Lan Feng, treasures arouse the envy of others. Without sufficient cultivation, one could only hand over the treasure if they encountered a cultivator who did not care about face and morality. Otherwise, they would be killed. Strength was everything. To put it bluntly, if Chen Hao was killed because of the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core, Bai Yen and Moling Takshu would at most be looked down upon by righteous people. It was not a big deal. How many righteous people were there in this world? It was not 100%, but 90% of people, as long as they had the strength, would make a move when they saw a heaven-defying treasure like the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core. It was also because of this that even Hu Mainyang had revealed her fox tail. However, if it was flipped around, it was a completely different concept. There was no other reason than the background of Bai Yen, Moling Takshu, and Hu Mainyang. Who would dare to kill them? The reason why Hu Mainyang did not make a move and even agreed to compensate the 2 of them in exchange for the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core was that she did not want to completely offend Moling Takshu and Bai Yen. Otherwise, given her strength, it would not be a problem to directly seize it. However, Chen Hao, a nobody with no background, dared to kill Bai Yen. If Bai Yen died, once he stepped out of the primitive mystic realm, there would be no place for Chen Hao in this world. In fact, everyone related to Chen Hao would be consigned to eternal damnation. Who would have thought that Chen Hao would be so crazy? So daring? Just as everyone was in a daze, the battle of life and death had already come to an end. Chen Hao's cold voice sounded, as if he had transformed into a demon. The scene was silent as everyone stared blankly at the unbelievable scene before them. Chen Hao grabbed Chen Hao's treasured saber with his bare hands. The sharp blade, which contained Bai Yan's near-death energy, was actually unable to split open Chen Hao's palm. Although it penetrated deep into his flesh and bones, Chen Hao grabbed it firmly. Chen Hao's hand was bleeding profusely. "You can die now. Remember not to be arrogant in front of me in your next life." Pooh! At this moment, Chen Hao's cold voice sounded as he slashed horizontally with his sword. The arrogant Bai Yan's eyes were filled with fear and unwillingness. He stared as if he did not believe that this was his fate. He did not believe that someone would dare to kill him. But everything was set in stone. He could clearly feel the cold treasured sword that had pierced through his right hand, slashing across his heart and chest. "You dare to kill me, my Bai family, Pa!" Chen Hao's bloody hand that was holding Bai Yan's treasured saber suddenly snatched it away and threw it away. Then, he slapped Bai Yan's head. The upper half of Bai Yan's body instantly fell to the ground. Bai Yan wanted to continue speaking, but the gurgling blood blocked his voice. However, since his body had been cut in half, it was impossible for him to die so quickly. His eyes, which were gushing with blood, stared at Chen Hao with incomparable hatred. "By family? I dare to kill the king of hell." At this moment, Chen Hao's handsome face was filled with a cold and fierce aura, and the words he spoke were arrogant to the point of being insufferably arrogant. However, his words were not as frightening as his actions. Bang! Chen Hao's feet surged with waves of runes as he stomped on Bai Yan's head. Like a watermelon, brain matter and blood splattered everywhere. Obviously, this was not only stomping on the head, but also the destruction of the body and soul. When Chen Hao said those words and did this action, his eyes stared straight at Moling Takshu, who was holding her sword in a daze. He looked as if he would kill any god or devil that blocked his way. Deng deng deng. Moling Takshu was actually affected by Chen Hao's aura and could not help but take a few steps back. At this moment, everyone was as silent as cicadas in winter. Qin Shui, Long Ting, the sisters, Senior Immortal Yunwei, Fan Donglu, and Fan Dongxing were all scared silly. Even Senior Immortal Han Mei, who had an abnormality, looked straight at Chen Hao with a dazed expression. You dare to kill Bai Yan?" Moling Takshu's face was gloomy, but her voice was trembling as she stared at Chen Hao. "So what if I killed him? He's just an ant. I can kill him with one hand." Chen Hao disdainfully said what Bai Yan had just said. It was indeed one hand, but it was one that was almost crippled. However, no one denied Chen Hao's words at this moment. Using his flesh and blood to block Bai Yan's dying strike was really too shocking. However, Chen Hao knew that what he did was far from enough. While speaking, Chen Hao casually picked up Bai Yan's saber while everyone was still in a daze. This was an ancient supreme-grade spirit treasure saber. "I hate shameless people the most. Since you want me to kill, then." When Chen Hao said then, the aura around his body suddenly erupted. Moling Takshu panicked and suddenly raised her sword, ready to meet him. Whoosh! Whoosh 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 whoosh! At this moment, Chen Hao twisted his body, twisted his waist, and waved his arm. His whole body was like a divine bow that was pulled into a full moon. He threw out the saber in his hand as fast as lightning. The cold saber turned into an invincible wind-fire wheel and flew out at a terrifying speed. The pressure of the true origin contained in it was not strong in the eyes of Moling Takshu and Hu Mainyang. However, the sound of the air breaking caused by the high-speed rotation made Moling Takshu, who bore the brunt of it, to gather 100% of her strength. However, the saber that seemed to fly towards Moling Takshu drew a beautiful arc and turned towards the pale-faced Chen Lin, who had just spoken to warn Moling Takshu and Bai Yen. Ah! Chen Lin, who was not prepared, exclaimed. He felt a warmth in his pants. He wanted to run, but his body did not listen to him. He was so scared that he peed. Go to hell. Poof. Chen Hao's words after then were heard at the same time as the sound of the saber's spinning blade hitting Chen Lin's head. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidyan.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 708. Whoosh. Whoosh. Chen Lin's head was cut in half vertically with the center of his eyebrows as the axis. Brain matter, blood, minced meat, and bone fragments flew everywhere. After the high-speed rotating saber cut open Chen Lin's head, it actually circled around and flew back to Chen Hao's hand in a beautiful trajectory. It was bloody, cruel, and horrifying. How did he do it? How is it possible to control it like that? Everyone present was an Earth celestial stage expert. If it were any other time, it would be no problem for them to do this. But it was different now. Under the 9 restrictions of celestial sealing, among everyone present, only Hu Mainyang had fully comprehended the 3rd restriction. Although her magic power and divine thought had recovered by nearly 30%, the heavenly law was incomplete. She couldn't even fly or open a storage ring, let alone control it perfectly. However, Chen Hao was actually able to use the treasured saber to such an exquisite level. Hu Mainyang's pupils constricted. She, who had an innate Taoist embryo, was close to the great Tao and was extremely sensitive to Taoist laws. However, at this moment, even she was shocked by Chen Hao's seemingly casual move that could kill people as easily as cutting vegetables. That was definitely not a Taoist rune, but a perfect combination of a wisp of divine thought and the power of the saber's rotation. Not to mention anything else, just calculating the force and direction of the rotation of the saber was definitely not something an ordinary person could do. At least, Hu Mainyang was not confident at all. If you think you can kill me, you can do it. I've never held grudges. If there's a grudge, I'll take revenge on the spot. This primitive mystic realm has been around for at least hundreds or even thousands of years. Idiots who rely on their fathers. Oh, they rely on their families and sections. Don't come in front of me. If you provoke me, I'll kill you. Chen Hao held the sword in one hand and the saber in the other. His black eyes were as bright as stars, emitting a soul-stirring murderous aura as he looked down on the crowd. Everyone who met his gaze shuddered and avoided him. Chen Hao walked toward Moling Takshu step by step. His body was covered in blood, and the blade of the ancient supreme-grade spiritual treasure shone with a cold light. With every step he took, the murderous aura around him increased. You? What do you want? Moling Takshu had experienced great storms and countless cruel battles. She had been defeated and killed many geniuses. However, at this moment, she was frightened by Chen Hao's madness and ruthlessness. She could not help but retreat in fear. She was afraid even before the battle started. This wasn't because he was cowardly, but because Chen Hao's madness that completely disregarded everything and his formidable strength had completely intimidated him. In the past, after he became famous, who would dare to kill him? What he had to face was, at best, a fair challenge between genius disciples, or an explicit duel to the death. Whether he was arrogant and despotic, or whether he went too far, behind him was one of the top 10 sects of vast universe galaxy. The Eternal Life sect was his most solid backing. No one dared to kill him so easily. Just like the unfathomable Hu Mainyang, she had the strength to suppress and vie with him, but she still had to be wary of his background and avoid offending him. But Chen Hao was a complete lunatic. Bai Yan's background was not any worse than his, but Chen Hao had mercilessly killed him with a single sword strike. Although it was an unexpected sneak attack, the abnormal body and cold-bloodedness that Chen Hao displayed made Moling Takshu understand that under the 9 restrictions of Immortal Sealing, he was not Chen Hao's match. And Chen Hao's terrifying ability to kill someone with a toss of his blade made him even more certain. Leave behind everything you have and get out. Otherwise, I don't mind trampling an ant to death, Chen Hao said coldly. You don't king talk nonsense. Chen Hao took another step forward. Moling Takshu was ashamed and angry at the same time. He looked at the surrounding cultivators in his team and roared, "All of you, attack! Kill him! Who dares?" Chen Hao suddenly shouted these 2 words like a thunderclap. He held his treasured blade horizontally in front of him and said, "Although I haven't had much contact with scum like you, I know your character. Who would work for you and be cannon fodder? Of course, all of you can come at me together. What do I have to fear? If one comes, I'll kill one. If a pair comes, I'll kill a pair." Wherever Chen Hao pointed his treasured blade, the cultivators, who did not dare to move, retreated one after another under Chen Hao's oppressive aura. The people present were not idiot. Chen Hao was a killing god who killed without blinking. He even dared to kill Bai Yan. What else did he not dare to do? This was no longer as simple as fighting for treasures. It was a fight to the death. Who could stop him? Anyone who went up would be cannon fodder. They had stepped into the primitive mystic realm for cultivation, ancient Dharma treasures, spirit herbs, and inheritances. They were not seeking death. Chen Hao, brother Chen, right? You have already killed 2 people, especially Bai Yan, who is the #1 genius of the Bai family. Can you give Main Yang some face and let this matter rest? Main Yang's figure flashed as the surrounding heavenly Tao laws and heaven and earth energy shook. She appeared between Chen Hao and Moling Takshu like a ghost. She smiled sweetly and her eyes were bright as she stared at Chen Hao, who was filled with killing intent. Her voice was still that seductive yet ethereal voice. Chen Hao frowned slightly. This woman looked calm and composed. However, her aura that was compatible with the Tao and the ghostly speed she had just displayed made Chen Hao cautious. Chen Hao could not tell how strong she was at all. This was also the thing that Chen Hao was most worried about. However, if Chen Hao had not maintained his composure, he would have slapped her long ago. Her words sounded better than singing. She was a slut. Miss Hu, let's kill this demon together. The Tao manifestation, immortal fruit core is yours. I, Moling Takshu, represent the eternal life sect and will advance and retreat together with the misty rain tower. Moling Takshu, who was aggrieved, frightened, and even more furious, immediately spoke with resentment when he saw Main Yang stand up for him. He knew very well that if he did not kill Chen Hao today, even if he could escape, it would be the greatest humiliation of his life. Chen Hao was destined to die. He did not doubt this at all. No one could casually kill Chen Hao. Regardless of whether it was in accordance with the rules, the Bai family would definitely bury Chen Hao with him. However, that was something that would happen after they left the primitive mystic realm. Just as Chen Hao had said, the primitive mystic realm would last for at least hundreds or thousands of years. If he was targeted by such a crazy and ruthless person, wouldn't he have to hide like a mouse before he completely comprehended the 9 restrictions of Immortal Sealing? Once that really happened, he, Moling Takshu, would be completely crippled. His Tao heart would be crippled and his luck would stop. It would be difficult for him to climb up the ranks of the top experts of the human race. The only way was to kill Chen Hao. He had to kill Chen Hao at all costs. Therefore, he made such a heavy promise without even thinking about it. He, the #1 genius disciple of the Eternal Life sect, would definitely become the sect master of the Eternal Life sect in the future as long as there were no accidents. Needless to say, Humain Yang, who had an innate Tao embryo, was even more so. As the saintess of the Misty Rain Tower, she was the only candidate for the position of Tower Master. Moreover, Humain Yang had already obtained the inheritance of the founder of the Misty Rain Tower and cultivated the #1 absolute art of the Misty Rain Tower, the Red Dust Heart Sutra. She would definitely become the most brilliant Tower Master in the history of the Misty Rain Tower. She would be on par with the founder of the Misty Rain Tower and might even be able to recreate the former glory of the Misty Rain Tower. Moling Taksha's promise was equivalent to the alliance of the two top forces in the vast universe galaxy in the future, with the Misty Rain Tower as the leader. When Humain Yang heard Moling Taksha's words, her pair of bright eyes instantly bloomed with 7 colored rays of light. Everyone was shocked to find that her gaze, which was like a 7-colored light pillar, was directly connected to Chun Hao's eyes. Huff! A cool breeze suddenly appeared in the strangely quiet space. Humain Yang's fine black hair fluttered in the wind. Her Taoist robe fluttered. Her entire being seemed to have transformed into the most brilliant star in the world. Her graceful and exquisite body and her devastatingly beautiful face made everyone unable to move their eyes away from her. The world suddenly lost its color and their minds suddenly went blank. There was only her, only her. At this moment, she was the master of this world, a goddess, a banished immortal. Not to mention Chun Hao, who bore the brunt of it. All the surrounding cultivators, regardless of gender, had their eyes fixed as if they had lost their souls. They were awed by Humain Yang's peerless demeanor. Those with weaker willpower even knelt down on the ground to worship her. This is not good. Long Ting, the sisters, and the others, who were hiding in the crowd, also lost their minds and forgot everything. They could only stare blankly at Humain Yang. Only Chen Shui struggled for a moment. The moment her eyes regained their clarity, she was about to rush out. However, at this moment, Han Mei Immortal, who had always been by her side, suddenly reached out and held her tightly. "Don't worry, Tian. Hao can still bear it." Han Mei Immortal lowered her voice and whispered in Chen Shui's ear. "Mother, look carefully." Han Mei Immortal knew that Chen Shui didn't believe her words. After all, the current her, except for her higher realm, had been surpassed by Chen Shui in all aspects. When Chen Shui heard her mother's words, she looked at Chen Hao in surprise. What surprised her was that the 7-colored light that seemed to connect to Chen Hao's eyes actually froze in front of Chen Hao's eyelids. Chen Hao's dark and deep eyes were still clear. Although there was no fluctuation of color, it seemed to emit a kind of colorless, formless, and extremely pure will, blocking the 7-colored light from invading. Chen Hao's black hair fluttered in the wind, as did his clothes. His handsome face was cold and solemn, and his eyes were as firm as iron. Holding the treasured saber and sword horizontally, he still emitted a shocking murderous aura. However, at this moment, it was completely covered by Chen Hao's figure, which was as straight as a mountain and as straight as a sword, and the soaring essence Qi emitted. "Brother Moling, what are you waiting for?" After a full minute, Humain Yang finally couldn't help but remind him while she was shocked in her heart. She thought that she could take Chen Hao by surprise and use the Red Dust Heart Sutra to intimidate him. This was the first time she had used the Red Dust Heart Sutra since she had cultivated it. She believed that in the world, no one in the Earth's celestial stage could resist it. However, what she didn't expect was that Chen Hao, who didn't have any background and only had a little bit of talent, had an unbelievably strong state of mind, will, and cultivation. After a full minute, she could only stabilize his mind, but she couldn't break through it. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 709. If it weren't for the surrounding cultivators who were as strong as Moling Takshu, Humaingyang would have doubted if the Red Dust Heart Sutra was really as powerful as the ancestral master said. This was just the effect of the Red Dust Heart Sutra's aura. Even the powerful Moling Takshu was affected, which undoubtedly explained how terrifying the Red Dust Heart Sutra was. However, Chun Hao, who bore the brunt of it, was not lost. The only explanation was that Chun Hao's will and state of mind far exceeded his own realm. This made Humaingyang feel a great threat. Previously, she didn't put Chun Hao in her eyes at all. Although she sensed that Chun Hao was not simple and might not be inferior to Moling Takshu and Bai Yin, she didn't expect him to be strong to this extent. Of course, even if he was stronger than Moling Takshu and Bai Yin, a cultivator without any powerful background would not enter her eyes. As the saintess of the Misty Rain House, she clearly knew what her mission was. The people she came in contact with were all outstanding young talent. Each of them was a monstrous genius of the younger generation. At the same time, each of them also had a powerful background. This was the reason why the Misty Rain House could become a top force in the vast universe galaxy. Although it was not the top 10 forces in the vast universe galaxy, no force dared to provoke it. She was confident that she could restore the Misty Rain House and even surpass the glory of the founding ancestral master, surpassing the top 10 sects. This was the ambition under her charming appearance. It was also the reason why she completely ignored Chun Hao in the beginning. However, Chun Hao suddenly displayed arrogance, coldness, madness, and strength. She couldn't help but pay attention to him. Ambushing and killing Bai Yin was already against universal condemnation and couldn't be measured by common sense. Killing Chun Hao with a flying knife was even more insolent. If that was all, Humaingyang might have bided her time and relied on her valiant strength to negotiate with Chun Hao in exchange for the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core. She wouldn't have stood out forcefully because it didn't conform to the Misty Rain House's smooth and slick style. However, Chun Hao actually forced Moling Takshu to leave behind all her Dharma treasures and then scram. What kind of concept was this? Such a domineering and insufferably arrogant existence made Humaingyang feel a sense of sympathy. She was certain that even if Chun Hao did not dare to make a move against her this time, he would probably still take it to heart because of her previous disdain for him. To be exact, it was as if she had disregarded air. This was the common characteristic of all geniuses. In other words, they were unyielding. Therefore, she wanted to conquer. However, in the beginning, she had only relied on her natural charm, peerless appearance, and the natural charm of the Secular Heart Sutra to subdue Chun Hao with her peerless demeanor. Unfortunately, when she said, on account of Mainyang's face, even though Chun Hao didn't say anything, she saw disdain and contempt in Chun Hao's eyes. This was the reason why she didn't hesitate to go against the Misty Rain Pavilion's principle of doing things and forcefully utilize the Secular Heart Sutra to confuse and deter Chun Hao. Otherwise, it would be utterly impossible for her to peacefully obtain the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core from Chun Hao. Moreover, it would leave behind latent dangers. Unfortunately, she'd utilized the Secular Heart Sutra with all her might, yet she was actually unable to take Chun Hao down, and this was what truly horrified her. Then what was there to hesitate about? Kill. Die. Humaingyang spoke in a light voice. Brother Moling, what are you waiting for? It was extremely sudden, and it instantly caused Moling Takshu to sober up. He shouted loudly and charged forward with his sword raised. Hiss. Rumble. Chen Shui, who'd already sobered up and was ready for battle since a long time ago, and Long Ting, who'd been forcefully awoken by Chen Shui, suddenly shot out at this moment. Chen Shui had become one with her sword, causing destruction's sword insight to surge like a river, and the direction she pointed with her sword was even swift and fierce. Shockingly, she'd executed the solitary sword technique that Chun Hao had passed down to her a long time ago. She didn't use any moves until she found a flaw. The solitary sword technique was the only ultimate technique that Chen Shui hadn't abandoned along with the advancement of her cultivation. Because no matter if it was an ultimate technique or an ultimate technique that was condensed into profound talisman markings, it was impossible to achieve perfection in the absolute sense. On the other hand, even though the solitary sword technique was named after the sword, it surpassed the sword. Its true essence was to see through falsehood, find the flaw, and destroy it with no moves. It could be said that this was a type of sublimation of combat principles, and since she'd started cultivating it until now, it had already fused into Chen Shui's instinctive consciousness. However, after her cultivation advanced, it wouldn't be displayed on the surface of her move. At this moment, Chen Shui had finally displayed her sword once more under the 9 seals of immortality. It was swift, ruthless, crafty, swift, fierce, and traceless. It was clearly not strong, yet it caused the surrounding cultivators who'd recovered from Moling Takshu's shout to instinctively feel their hair stand on end. At the same time, what was even more shocking was not Chen Shui, but Long Ting. The instant Long Ting's seemingly graceful and delicate body erupted, she directly stomped on the incomparably hard rocky ground, causing rubble to swirl in the air. What was even more terrifying was that the majestic blood chi that Long Ting released in that instant was actually as heavy as a mountain. Her originally snowy skin had turned golden yellow. She was completely unarmed, but the speed, pressure, and the fist that instantly shot toward Moling Takshu like a cannonball was so powerful that it seemed to be able to shatter the void. She directly inserted herself between Moling Takshu and Chen Hao. At this moment, everyone was stupefied, especially those cultivators who'd seen Chen Hao and the others in the previous 2 forbidden zones. They simply didn't dare to believe that this was real. All along, it had been Chen Hao alone who'd been dazzling, shining with boundless radiance. Even though Long Ting had revealed a bit of her edge, it wasn't to the extent where it was shocking. However, at this moment, regardless of whether it was the concealed Chen Xiaobai or Long Ting, the aura and power that they'd revealed in that instant far exceeded everyone's expectations. Chi. However, what everyone didn't know was that it wasn't over yet. Just as they were shocked by Long Ting's and Chen Shui's valiance, 2 identical and charming sisters appeared behind Moling Takshu with the same speed, the same expression, and the same aura. However, their postures were completely symmetrical, and they were as fast as ghosts. There was no need to think too much about it. Everyone understood that this pair of sisters had completely merged into one at this moment. Any one of them was like an arm to the other. It was not just telepathy, but body and mind as one, strength as one. Ah! Moling Takshu sensed the sudden attacks coming from all directions. In his horror, he abandoned all thoughts of life and death. As if a small universe had exploded, his sword momentum didn't change, and the strength around him instantly soared by a level. At this moment, facing an unprecedented life-or-death crisis, he became calmer and made the most correct choice. Even if he died, he would slay Chen Hao with his sword. It was a pity. How is this possible? At the same time, Hu Mainyang was also shocked by the sudden appearance of Long Ting, Chen Shui, and the sisters. She knew that Chen Hao had accomplices, but even if she had 10 heads, she would never have thought that unknown accomplices would be so strong. Moreover, there was more than one of them. This situation caused her to lose her composure, which she hadn't lost since the beginning. She knew very well that even if Moling Takshu was stronger than the 4 of them individually, he wouldn't be able to deal with the enemies from all sides. As for herself, it was easy to pin down Chen Hao, but it was extremely difficult to intimidate him. She couldn't divert her attention to battle. Otherwise, Chen Hao would immediately be freed. In other words, while she pinned down Chen Hao, she wouldn't be able to do anything herself. Once Moling Takshu died, it would be time for the 4 girls to swing their swords at her. No matter how strong she was, she wouldn't have any chance of winning against the siege of Chen Hao and the 4 girls. She might even die if she wasn't careful. Although she was unwilling, she knew that she couldn't hesitate. Otherwise, it would be out of her control. Hiss! There will be. Hu Meinyang pulled herself out, turned around, and fled out of the palace as fast as lightning. At the same time, her charming voice rang out. Although she was frustrated, she couldn't lose the elegance of the Misty Rain House's saintess. However, she had only said 3 words, swoosh. The moment Hu Meinyang withdrew the red dust heart sutra and suddenly fled, Chen Hao didn't hesitate to throw his sword and saber at her. However, it was too hasty at the moment. Whether it was his strength or control, he couldn't reach the peak state. However, Chen Hao didn't intend to shoot it down. It was enough to stop Hu Meinyang for a moment. No matter how fast she fled, could she be faster than the flying sword and saber? Therefore, all the cultivators who turned to look at the fleeing Hu Meinyang saw a scene that shocked them to the extreme. The rotating sword and saber drew 2 beautiful trajectories in front of Hu Meinyang to kill her. Hu Meinyang's voice came to an abrupt stop. With a shout, she struck out with her palms. Whether it was the angle, the strength, or the Tao law contained, they all displayed extremely terrifying energy. She easily sent the sword and saber flying, but her figure was destined to be forced to stop for a moment. You motherf ****. It was also at that moment that Chen Hao rushed forward like a cannonball and kicked at Hu Meinyang. This kick was absolutely earth-shattering. What was even more shocking was Chen Hao's angry curses. This was the high and mighty saintess of the Misty Rain House. Hu Meinyang coldly snorted. She didn't even turn her head as she sent a palm strike behind her. In her opinion, not only was Chen Hao's kick useless, it would even allow her to borrow the force of his kick to escape even faster. However, bang! Hu Meinyang burst into a scream of horror, shame, and anger as she disappeared in the direction of the gate. Everyone could clearly see blood-red footprints appearing on Hu Meinyang's plump and seductive buttocks. Chen Hao, just you wait. I, Hu Meinyang, will avenge today's humiliation no matter what. Hu Meinyang's voice was no longer coquettish. Instead, it was extremely cold. One could imagine what kind of anger made Hu Meinyang, who had always maintained a calm and serene demeanor, lose her composure. Except for Hu Meinyang, no one knew how Chen Hao's seemingly useless kick broke the force of Hu Meinyang's palm and landed on her buttocks. Everyone was a little dumbfounded, but more of them were horrified by Chen Hao's performance. Today's incident was bound to cause a sensation in the entire cultivation world. Who would have thought that the saintess of the Misty Rain House, who was born charming and had an innate Taoist embryo, would be forced to flee by Chen Hao and even kicked on her buttocks. Qidian has launched a free Qidian Coins event for mobile users who download the Uni app. The event is as follows. During the event, new users who download the latest version of the Uni Android app will receive the following rewards. 1. Directly receive 200 Qidian Coins or choose to draw a grand prize of 10,000 Qidian Coins. 2. Users who download and install the Qidian Reading app for the first time through the Uni Android app will receive another 200 Qidian Coins. 3. Complete the Uni mission and more surprises await you. For more details, there is a promotional link on Qidian's homepage, http://www.qidian. Comploy 201306225 Uni. ASPX Proud Heavens results are very poor. I hope that readers who have not subscribed before will participate in this event and receive Qidian Coins for free to support Proud Heavens subscription. Especially Chapter 97, Stars Shaking Punch. Thank you. From today onwards there will be stable updates. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 710. Chen Hao returned to the depths of the hall as if nothing had happened. At this time, all the cultivators who turned to look at Chen Hao and Hu Meinyang, although they were not surprised, still sucked in a breath of cold air. Moling Takshu was decapitated. Chen Shui's sword pierced through his head. The sisters, Ling Ninghuan's sword, stained with blood, cut off his neck. Ling Ninghu's sword pierced through her heart. Only Long Ting's right hand was bleeding and her face was pale. Sister Ting, are you all right? Chen Hao quickly walked over and took Moling Takshu's head from Chen Shui's sword. He threw it on the ground and stomped on it as if he had done something insignificant. At the same time, he looked worriedly at Long Ting's bleeding hand and asked, "I'm fine, just a little tired." Long Ting said weakly, "If I had known, I would have done it. Damn it, I only kicked that bitch once, but you were injured," Chen Hao said without hiding anything. Everyone who heard this trembled. Kicking the Saintess Hu Mainyang's butt and calling her a bitch, Chen Hao was probably the only person in the world who could do this. Everyone was sure that after stepping out of the primitive mystic realm, Chen Hao had no hope of survival. Killing Bai Yen, killing Moling Takshu, and kicking Hu Mainyang, any one of them was fatal. Especially kicking Hu Mainyang's butt, not to mention Hu Mainyang would definitely not let it go. Just Hu Mainyang's army of genius admirers could drown Chen Hao. Hu Mainyang was in contact with super geniuses of the heavenly immortal stage from the temple. For the sake of pleasing Hu Mainyang, these geniuses would probably fight to be the first to ravage and kill Chen Hao. As for the four women, only Long Ting and others knew about her background and some information. As for Chen Shui, Ling Ninghuan, and Ling Ninghu, no one knew their background, but they were all disciples of the temple. With Long Ting's background, they obviously could not protect her. As for Chen Shui and the other two, no one knew. But it was basically certain that apart from the top 10 sects or powerful families like the Bai family, no one could protect them. Of course, this was what everyone present thought. Not long after, someone noticed the abnormality. The reason was simple. After this matter spread out, not a single temple disciple recognized Chen Shui and the sisters. It was not strange that no one recognized a division, and it was also acceptable for an army. But when several armies gathered and talked about Chen Xiaobai and the sisters, not a single temple disciple recognized them. What did this mean? Chen Shui and her sisters' identities were definitely not simple. Of course, this was a matter for the future. The unreasonable are afraid of the reckless, and the reckless are afraid of the reckless. Big brother, don't be rash. This kind of person is doomed to die. He can do anything. There's no need for us to take the risk and fight with him. Risk? With the four of us brothers together and a team of 500 people, how could we be afraid of him? If we give it up just like that, we, the four berserk dragons of the Holy Temple, might as well change our name to the four reptiles. Not bad. Big brother was right. It would have been fine if he hadn't encountered them, but since he had, there was no reason for him to back down. Second brother, you've always been cautious, but this time, you're being too cautious. It's just a rumor. How can we, the four berserk dragons, be afraid before the battle? That's right, second brother. Although he killed Moling Takshu and Bai Yen, and even humiliated and forced Miss Hu to leave, we also understood the situation at that time. That brat only relied on his strong physical body. Long Ting in his team also has a strong physical body. Although Chen Xiaobai and the two sisters are strong, they are nothing to the four of us. Now that we're at the 6th level of the Forbidden Zone, how much weaker is the advantage of our physical bodies compared to before? There's no need to be afraid. With the four of us working together, there's no need to fear anyone. That's right. Our heavenly dragon's 4 elephants battle formation has been raised to perfection, and our understanding of the 9 restrictions is close to perfection. What's there to fear? Not only are we going to fight for the core palace, we're going to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. We're going to spread the name of the 4 berserk dragons. More importantly, second brother, don't forget that this kid has the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core and countless treasures. The Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core is a heaven-defying treasure. If the four of us obtain it, who in the temple can fight against us? This. Big brother, third brother, fourth brother. All right, it's settled then. Big brother waved his hand to stop the frowning and hesitating second brother. He had already steeled his heart to do it and firmly believed that this was an excellent opportunity for the four berserk dragons of the temple. Therefore, he could only stop second brother from saying anything that would damage their morale. All right, since all of you think it's fine, we'll do it. However, big brother, since we're going to do it, we can't be like those two idiots, Moling Takshu and Bai Yen. We should do it. The resourceful second brother whispered to the other three for a moment. Although big brother, third brother, and fourth brother firmly believed in the combat strength of the four of them working together, they finally agreed under second brother's insistence. After all, second brother's method might not be able to display their strength to the greatest extent, but it was safer. Soon, second brother gathered the group of 500 people. The four berserk dragons, they actually appeared here. I wonder if they dare to provoke Chen Hao and the others. Leader, who are the four berserk dragons? Are they powerful? Of course. They're powerful, but their family is even more powerful. They're one of the families in our vast universe galaxy that can contend with the 10 great sects, the Wan family. I don't know what secret technique their family has obtained, but every generation of direct descendants can produce quadruplet brothers. They come in groups, and the family head is jointly held by the four battery brothers. Although I don't know the details, it's rumored that the quadruplet brothers in their family share their wives. On the surface they share, but in reality they don't share. Cough, cough, I'm sorry to say too much. The four berserk dragons are nicknames given by the people of our divine temple. They're called Soaring Dragon, Leaping Tiger, Wan Long, Wan Ting, Wan Hu, Wan Yu. Any one of the four is very strong, and they're all ranked within the top 50 in the Earth celestial stage. Top 50? Leader, that's not very high. They're not even as strong as Bai Yen and Moling Takshu. Their individual strength is not as good as Moling Takshu and Bai Yen, but if they work together, let alone Bai Yen and Moling Takshu, any one of the top 10, no, any four of them working together would not be a match for them. It can't be, right? Could it be that the four brothers have achieved the unity of body and mind and strength? Even so, I'm afraid it's impossible. It's more terrifying than what you think. The Wan family's quadruplets and the Wan family's ancestral battle formation, the heavenly dragon's four elephants, complement each other. It not only allows the four of them to achieve the unity of body and mind and strength, but also allows them to transform and create the heavenly dragon territory. Now, even the 9 seals of celestial sealing have reached the 6th layer. Looking at them, I'm afraid they've been able to use it for a long time. Look, they've gone deep. Let's go and have a look. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidien. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 711. It had been 3 years since Chen Hao killed Moling Takshu, Bai Yen, and kicked Hu Mainyang, the saintess of the Misty Rain House. Since then, Chen Hao and the girls had not encountered any threat. Their journey was smooth, and everyone avoided them. As long as they were in the area where Chen Hao and the others appeared, no one dared to challenge them in the core palace. The bold were afraid of the reckless, and the reckless were afraid of the reckless, especially the powerful and reckless Chen Hao. He dared to kill Bai Yen and Moling Takshu, and even humiliate the saintess of the Misty Rain House. What else did he not dare to do? This battle deterred the world, and his fierce reputation spread far and wide. Without enough confidence, who dared to challenge him? Even the top powerhouses who knew where Chen Hao was avoided him directly. They would rather spend more time in other areas. Otherwise, they would not be able to get the core palace. Each level of the forbidden area was divided into many areas according to the area, and each area had a core palace. The further they went, the more cultivators gathered in each area. Originally, under normal circumstances, it was possible for the mysterious clan to start a war. But because the 9 great forbidden areas had been opened, the possibility of a war between different races was avoided prematurely. Because everyone wanted to comprehend and go deep into the core as soon as possible. After breaking through the 9 restrictions of celestial ceiling, the core area was the final battlefield. On the 6th level, it was difficult for a team of dozens of people to get the smallest palace. From this, one could see how many cultivators there were. Today, the 6th level of the forbidden area finally appeared. Someone dared to challenge Chen Hao and the others. They were the 4 mad dragons of the Divine Temple, Wan Jialong and Hu Yu brothers, who were equally famous and domineering. Swish as the 4 wild dragons took the lead and headed straight toward the core palace in the depths, countless cultivators in the surroundings stopped cultivating and got up one after another, following behind them with excited and expectant looks on their faces. The 4 mad dragons are so powerful. This nickname is not self-given, but a title given by the Divine Temple. Not to mention the Earth Celestial Stage, even among the disciples of the Divine Temple in the Heaven Celestial Stage, there are not many who can get this title. The 4 of them are inseparable. When the battle formation of the 4 symbols of the Sky Dragon is used, no one in the Earth Celestial Stage can defeat them. It is said that an ordinary cultivator at the initial stage of the Heavenly Celestial Stage cannot withstand the Heavenly Dragon territory of the 4 of them. It can't be? Even heavenly immortals can't do it? This is the truth. Our family has some ties with the Wan family. Before we entered the primitive secret area, their family had tested us with experts at the beginning stage of the Heavenly Celestial Stage. They were the winners. Hiss! The words of a disciple from the sanctum made the surrounding cultivators who wanted to watch the show gasp. Although he was talking about an ordinary cultivator at the initial stage of the Heaven Celestial Stage, it still shocked everyone. There was an insurmountable gap between the Heaven Celestial Stage and the Earth Celestial Stage. A genius at the peak of the later stage of the Earth Celestial Stage couldn't be compared with an ordinary cultivator at the initial stage of the Heaven Celestial Stage. Of the 3 realms of heaven, earth, man, mortal, and heaven, true immortal. They were only one step apart, but it was like heaven on earth. However, when the 4 berserk dragons of the Holy Temple joined forces, they actually had the strength to defeat an ordinary expert at the early stage of the Heaven Celestial Stage. This was absolutely heaven-defying. No wonder the 4 berserk dragons aren't afraid of Chen Hao and the others. Just wait and see. The 4 berserk dragons are called the 4 berserk dragons not only because of their strength, but also because of their arrogance. In the sanctum, they can do whatever they want. Even the top 10 geniuses at the Earth Celestial Stage have to avoid them. They are also ruthless people who dare to ignore the unspoken rules. Then wouldn't Chen Hao and the others be in trouble? Isn't that obvious? I don't think so, right? Just now, we sensed the aura of Chen Hao and the others. Not to mention Chen Hao, Long Ting, Qin Xiaobai, and the sisters all have extremely powerful auras. Long Ting, Chen Shui, and the sisters had killed Moling Takshu, who was ranked 10th in the sanctum, with a single move. They were also very famous. Moreover, during this period, as more and more disciples from the sanctum met, everyone had some doubts about the identities of Chen Shui and the sisters. This was because, until now, no one had heard of the 3 of them in the sanctum. This was a little abnormal. Chen Shui didn't say anything. After all, she had changed her appearance and wasn't that outstanding. However, the sisters who looked exactly the same, although they had changed their appearance, they were rare existences. Even if they looked ordinary, they were still people who attracted attention. There was no reason why no one had heard of them. That's because you don't understand the combat power of the 4 berserk dragons when they join forces. Just wait and see. He's arrived here? A female disciple, who was sitting cross-legged in a corner and wearing a loose black robe, had an ordinary appearance but a powerful aura. She was awakened by the huge commotion and discussion on the main road. Her eyes became extremely lively, and her expression was extremely complicated. Her delicate body, which was hidden under the loose black robe, trembled slightly. She was obviously very emotional. After stepping into the primitive mystic realm, she had deliberately deviated from the route for some reason. She had taken a very long detour before she began to go deeper. Alone, he walked forward in solitude. In the primitive mystic realm, in the past 20 years, she had experienced many cruel fights. She had encountered many life and death situations. She had also gained a lot and improved greatly. But the biggest change was 2 years ago. She had learned that Chen Hao had killed Moling Takshu and Bai Yen. She had learned of the terrifying strength that Long Ting, Chen Xiaobai, and the beautiful sisters had displayed. She had guessed who Chen Xiaobai and the beautiful sisters were. Originally, she should have been very shocked, very unwilling, and very angry. But everything was different from what she had imagined. After hesitating for a few minutes, she took a deep breath and stood up. Her aura became even more restrained at this moment. She blended into the flow of people and walked in the opposite direction. She seemed out of place. Many people looked at her strangely. They did not understand why this female disciple was so different from the rest. Young cultivators had youthful and energetic hearts. Encountering such a peak battle that was about to happen, even if it meant delaying their cultivation, they would still go and take a look. But this female cultivator who had completely concealed her true appearance was far away. Her loose black Taoist robe and her lonely figure gave people a feeling of desolation. She walked further and further away, until she stepped into the city. If Chen Hao saw this figure, he would most likely be able to recognize who it was at first glance. But the expression and aura of this figure would definitely make Chen Hao puzzled. Because this was something that Chen Hao would never have thought of. People would change. But very few people could change so much in a short period of time. Especially young people. Only with the passage of time, the baptism of time, the increase of experience, the richness of experience, could they gradually understand themselves, lose their impetuosity and impulsiveness, see their true nature, see their true self. But she had undergone such a huge change in the short 20 years in the primitive mystic realm. Chen Hao would not have thought of such a change. Similarly, this female cultivator would not have thought of it herself. She was Bailey Ningbing. Everything was because of one person. A person who had died. A person who had been killed by Chen Hao. Moling Tashue. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 7:12. In the past, she had been as proud as a peacock, and any geniuses of the same age on the Wuji star were but ants in her eyes. As the most beloved granddaughter of the Wuji Demon Palace's palace master, Guan Nanchao, her knowledge and vision had long surpassed the Wuji star's vast universe. It was only when Dongfang Han, who possessed the undying and indestructible inheritance, appeared that she was moved. Of course, she was moved by the immortal laws, not Dongfang Han. If she could dual cultivate with Dongfang Han, she would definitely be able to quickly obtain the immortal laws that she desperately needed and soar into the sky. But she did not expect that Dongfang Han would die at the hands of Chen Hao. And Chen Hao had obtained the undying and indestructible inheritance. So, she still held her head high and wanted Chen Hao to become her Tao companion. In her opinion, no one would reject her because she was the most outstanding person in the world. No matter if it was talent or looks, no one would reject her, but Chen Hao coldly rejected her. The proud peacock had never encountered such a situation before, and her self-esteem had suffered a severe blow. She swore that she would completely trample Chern Hao under her feet, make him regret, make him submit, but the result was that she was defeated by Chern Hao again and again. Every time she thought that she had surpassed Chern Hao, she was left in the dust again and again. Especially the last confrontation, which had almost shattered her confidence. After the appearance of the primitive mystic realm, and obtaining information about Chern Hao, she wanted to use the powerful Moling Takshu to suppress, capture, and humiliate Chern Hao. So, she approached Moling Takshu and expressed her goodwill. However, what she did not expect was that even though she had always thought that she was clear about her own intentions and that she was a woman who would do anything to achieve her goals, when she approached Moling Takshu and wanted to have intimate contact with her, she felt a strong sense of disgust. She could not even accept a simple handshake or hug, much less intimate contact. Moreover, whenever Moling Takshu wanted to do something, the person she hated the most would appear in her mind. Chern Hao. That cold and disdainful gaze, that wicked and shameless smile, the humiliation towards her, especially the last time when he stripped her naked, that was a strange feeling. She hated him to the extreme, but it also made her heart unable to tolerate any man. Even if the other party was the incomparably powerful top genius Moling Takshu, she could not. Once, when Moling Takshu forcefully wanted to have intimate action with her, she impulsively gave her a big slap. This slap, it stunned Moling Takshu and also woke her. Moling Takshu originally thought that Bailey Ningbing, who had tacitly agreed to be his Tao companion in the future, was just shy. She was reluctant, and there would definitely be no problem with some intimate contact. But he didn't expect Bailey Ningbing to be so determined. This made him incomparably angry. He even thought of the reason. Bailey Ningbing was using him to take revenge on Chern Hao. Otherwise, how could she not let him have a taste of the sweetness of being an honorary Tao companion? It was fine if she did not hand over her body. For any genius disciple, the stronger they were, the greater the benefit. But if she could not even do intimate things, then there was definitely a problem. This made Moling Takshu fly into a rage, and she scolded Bailey Ningbing. And Bailey Ningbing also truly understood herself. That Chern Hao, who she hated to the point of madness and even had her mind twisted, had unknowingly taken over her heart. After falling out with Moling Takshu, she, who had truly woken up, chose to leave alone. In the primitive mystic realm, in 20 years, she had thought a lot and had truly matured. She did not know her true nature, but at least she had a clearer understanding of herself. 2 years ago, when she obtained Moling Takshu and was killed by Chern Hao, she was shocked by Chern Hao's strength and madness. She also felt sorry for Moling Takshu, but that was it. Now, she had come to a city's forbidden area. If it was in the past, even if she was not as strong, she would still take a look, and at least know her enemy. But now, she chose to stay away. The past was the past. There was no turning back, no turning back. Die. With the 4 berserk dragons attacking, you will definitely die. Who? The valiant and high-spirited 4 berserk dragons walked in unison, as if they were stepping on the pulse of the world. Even though they did not deliberately release any aura, the profoundness of the 4 of them, as if they were one, gave off an unfathomable feeling. And in the group behind the 4 of them who wanted to watch, there was a cultivator in a black robe, carrying a large bag, with a hunched back and a face full of stains. He had completely changed his aura and appearance. When he saw Chern Hao at the entrance of the core palace from afar, he said viciously in his heart. He had originally entered the city, but when he heard that Chern Hao's group had already entered the city, he immediately wanted to turn around and flee. But he happened to see the 4 berserk dragons of the temple, which made him change his mind, and he followed them. Now, seeing that the 4 berserk dragons were about to compete with Chern Hao for the core palace, he was extremely excited. He has robbed me 4 times. If I had obtained treasures, especially the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core, I would definitely be a top expert by now. Fortunately, my luck is extremely strong, and I have obtained many treasures. The figure looked at Chen Hao in the distance with hatred as he thought to himself. This fellow was none other than Lan Feng, who had been robbed by Chen Hao 4 times. Ever since Chen Hao had stolen the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core and killed Bai Yen and Moling Takshu, he did not dare to appear in his true form. Every time he entered the city, the first thing he had to do was to confirm whether Chen Hao had appeared. As long as Chen Hao was around, he would rather slowly comprehend in the wilderness than appear in the city. It could be said that he fled at the sound of the news. This was not without reason. Every time he had been caught by Chen Hao, he had changed his appearance and aura, but he had still been recognized. This time, the 4 berserk dragons have made a move, and I have also obtained the ancient divine artifact, the form-changing ring. They definitely won't be able to see my true form, and even if they did, they definitely won't have the chance to cause trouble for me. Lan Feng looked at the backs of the 4 berserk dragons again, and said with certainty. As a disciple of the temple, he knew very well how strong the 4 berserk dragons were. If the 4 of them joined forces, not to mention the vast universe galaxy, even among the 10 great tribes, there was probably no one at the Earth celestial stage who was a match for them. However, just as Lan Feng looked at Chen Hao in front of the core palace again, Chen Hao, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly opened his eyes. 2 sharp golden lights, like weak stars, stared straight at him. How is this possible? Did he discover me? No, he's looking at the 4 berserk dragons. Motherf **Ker, did I, Lan Feng, grow up in fear? But why are his eyes emitting golden light? With just a glance, cold sweat broke out on Lan Feng's forehead. He stopped in his tracks and shrank back. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 7:13. Lan Feng gritted his teeth, took a deep breath, and moved forward again. Not to mention that he wasn't sure if Chen Hao had discovered him. Even if he did, there was no need to be afraid. With the 4 wild dragons attacking, Lan Feng was sure that Chen Hao and the others were doomed. What was there to be afraid of? He really wanted to see the scene of the 4 wild dragons killing Chen Hao. Bang, 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 separated by 100 meters, the 4 wild dragons stared at Chen Hao and the others with fierce eyes. They didn't say a word, but their footsteps became heavier and heavier. The 4 of them made the same bang-bang sound, like a heavy hammer pounding on everyone's heart. Those with weaker cultivations couldn't help but release their energy. So strong as expected of the 4 wild dragons. Lan Feng and many other cultivators were shocked. Although they had long heard of the 4 wild dragons' sky dragon battle formation of 4 symbols power, when they saw the 4 of them as one, it was still beyond their imagination. Their footsteps, breathing, and heartbeats were completely in sync. If one sensed a little, they would find that the 4 of them were like one person with 4 bodies. Their souls seemed to have fused together, and they were in perfect harmony. Behind the 4 wild dragons was a team of nearly 500 people. Many of them had a trace of madness on their faces as they looked at Chen Hao and the others with burning eyes. Seeing the team of 500 people led by the 4 of them approaching step by step, Chen Hao, who was sitting cross-legged, narrowed his eyes slightly. His handsome face revealed a trace of seriousness, but there was even more undetectable excitement in the depths of his eyes. "It's been 3 years," Chen Hao murmured. For 3 whole years, as long as he wanted to fight for something, everyone avoided him like snakes and scorpions. No one dared to compete with him. No matter where he went, the forbidden area, the city, and the core palace of that area were all his. A person's name was like a tree's shadow. He killed Moling Takshu and Bai Yen, humiliated and forced Hu Mainyang to flee, and became the infamous god of slaughter. On the 4th and 5th floors, He and the others changed directions several times, but it was useless. For 3 whole years they cultivated in peace, and no one disturbed them. In this situation, not to mention Chern Hao, even the girls were a little depressed. What was the point of training and cultivation if everything went smoothly? Most of the time, they had no choice but to spar with each other, but it was always less thrilling and more scrupulous. And now, someone had finally arrived. Furthermore, based on his aura, he could tell that he was an expert. In particular, the aura of the 4 berserk dragons as one caused Chern Hao's blood, which had remained dormant for 3 years, to become excited. However, what made Chern Hao frown was the army behind the 4 mad dragons. There were nearly 500 people, and many of them looked at him and the girls with burning eyes and excitement. As they got closer and closer, the fighting intent of the 500 people formed a steel torrent headed by the 4 mad dragons. Although the surrounding people could feel the terror of this aura, compared to the target Chern Hao and the others, it was completely negligible. Chern Hao clearly felt that this battle was not a battle between him and the 4 mad dragons, but a team battle. Chern Shui, Long Ting, the sisters, Fan Donglu and Fan Dongsheng all stood up one after another, protecting Han Mei and Yun Wei. If there is a melee later, kill them directly, no need to show mercy. Chern Hao's expression did not change, and he said in a low voice, "Okay." Chern Shui and the others responded, and their auras also bloomed. In the face of such a situation, everyone knew that unless they could intimidate the other party, no matter how strong they would not be able to withstand the siege of the 4 experts and the army of nearly 500 people. They could only intimidate with their aura and kill with their lives. What arrogance! You are Chern Hao? The 4 mad dragons finally stopped when they were 50 meters away from Chern Hao, and their leader, Wan Long, stared fiercely at Chern Hao and said. At this moment, only Chern Hao was still sitting cross-legged, and he did not even stand up. At this moment, although the surroundings were terrifyingly quiet, no one was talking. They all looked at Chern Hao and held their breaths, wanting to see what Chern Hao, who had caused a sensation in the 9 restrictions of Immortal Sealing, would do in the face of the powerful 4 mad dragons. At this moment, just the fact that Chern Hao was sitting cross-legged and did not stand up surprised everyone. They thought that Chern Hao must be very arrogant, but they did not expect him to be so arrogant. This was absolutely a blatant contempt for the 4 mad dragons. You are the 4 mad dragons of the temple? Chern Hao slightly raised the corner of his mouth, and did not answer Wan Long's question. Instead, he asked in the same disdainful tone. In the past 3 years, all the famous experts would be spread through the constantly intertwining and changing cultivators. The 4 mad dragons were undoubtedly a group that was highly praised. Although Chern Hao and the others had not met them before, they could confirm their identities based on their auras and appearances. You know it's us, but you are still so calm. Your courage is commendable. Wan Long was not angry in the face of Chern Hao's disdainful gaze. Instead, he laughed. You are courting death. 30,000 Tiger said gloomily. Boy, if you want to die quickly, hand over the Tao manifestation, immortal fruit core and destroy your own primordial spirit. Otherwise, don't blame us brothers for enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens and making you beg for death. 40,000 Tiger pointed at Chern Hao and said arrogantly. Enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens? Unable to live, unable to die? Haha. Chern Hao looked at 40,000 Tiger in surprise. He slowly stood up and laughed. With your moral integrity, what justice on behalf of the heavens? Unable to live, unable to die with just the likes of you? Humph. You killed the geniuses of the human race, Bai Yen, Moling Takshu and Chen Lin, for the sake of stealing treasures. Everyone has the right to kill you. Although you will definitely die once you step out of the primitive mystic realm, we 4 brothers will not allow you to continue killing our fellow humans. At this moment, Wan Ting, who had been silent all this while, said sternly with a righteous tone, "Yes. Kill the devil and enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. Chun Hao is inhumane. He even dares to kill the geniuses of the divine palace. He is a devil. Brother Wan, don't talk nonsense with him. Let's kill this devil and enforce justice on behalf of the heavens." In the team of the 4 wild dragons, many people also clamored with righteous indignation, as if they wanted to tear Chun Hao to shred. Their morale also instantly soared. However, what made Wan Ting frown slightly was that the expressions of Chun Hao, Chun Shui, Long Ting, and the others did not change at all. Only the rising fighting spirit became more and more intense. Senior Immortal Yun Wei, who was blocked by Chun Shui, Long Ting, and the others, looked solemn. Apparently, she was very worried about the current situation. The disparity between the enemy and her was too great. She had also heard about the strength of the 4 mad dragons. Therefore, the current situation was not optimistic, especially when she felt that she and Senior Immortal Han Mei were burdens. However, unlike Senior Immortal Yun Wei, although Senior Immortal Han Mei was also nervous and worried, there was a faint glimmer of expectation in the depths of her eyes. She stared at Chun Hao's back. Ha 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 ha! Chun Hao suddenly laughed wildly. His laughter was as loud as thunder, directly suppressing the noise of the chattering. He said, 4 mad dragons, before I met you, I more or less thought that you should be powerful. After meeting you, do you deserve to be called mad dragons? Bai Yen and Moling Takshu are 100 times stronger than you. If you want the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core, just say it. Why do you have to be hypocritical and talk about enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens? Don't insult the word mad dragons anymore. Reptiles are more suitable for you. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 7:14. Clang. Boom. Chun Hao unsheathed his sword and released his aura. You think you can take me down by luring them to their deaths? You're King dreaming. Come on, I'll beat you all up. Holding his sword in front of his chest, his battle intent and blood chi erupted like a flood. His slaughter sword chi covered the sky and earth. His figure, which was not tall, seemed to have transformed into a god of slaughter. His sword pointed at the crowd, and he looked down on the world with disdain. Crazy! Crazy enough to swallow mountains and rivers. Just his aura alone was enough to frighten all the cultivators within a few hundred feet. Not to mention those who had never seen Chun Hao before, even Lan Feng and the others who had seen Chun Hao's ferocity and power were intimidated by Chun Hao's intense killing intent, causing their hair to stand on end. It had been 3 years. For 3 whole years, no one had dared to lightly go against him. They'd originally thought that Chun Hao, who relied more on his physical body, would have less and less advantage as the 9 restrictions of immortal sealing were unsealed step by step. However, at this moment, Chun Hao merely released his aura in an unbridled manner, and it allowed everyone to clearly see that the current Chun Hao was even more terrifying. Especially the aura of the slaughter sword Tao, which seemed to have materialized. The cultivators who had been clamoring to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens widened their eyes in horror. Chun Hao rarely used the slaughter sword Tao. However, at this moment, in order to reduce the number of people killed, he had to use the slaughter sword Tao to deter them. You're courting death. You're courting death. The 4 of us can kill you like killing dogs. All of you back off. Boom. 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 Big Brother Wan Long, Big Brother Wan Hu, and Big Brother Wan Yu were infuriated by Chun Hao's arrogant words and attitude. At this moment, they regretted listening to Big Brother Wan Ting's idea. When had the 4 mad dragons ever been afraid? When had they ever talked about reason? They had always been disdainful of acting like whores, but this time, because of Chun Hao and the others, Big Brother Wan Ting had offered generous conditions to bewitch the cultivators under him. It could be said that this was the only time they had done something like this. However, this time, they were mocked by Chun Hao as insect. This made Wan Long, Wan Hu, and Wan Yu feel ashamed and unable to tolerate it. Big Brother! Shut up! Second Brother, no one can insult the name of the 4 berserk dragons. Today we must let this arrogant brat know who is the real worm. Boss Wan Long said without hesitation, directly sealing Wan Ting's mouth. He stared coldly at Chun Hao and said, "Very good. I, Wan Long, thought that you and all of you weren't qualified for us 4 brothers to act. My subordinates were enough to kill you all. Now it seems that we have underestimated you. That's right, it's too fake to say that we're enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. We, the 4 berserk dragons, are here for the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core. Hand it over and the 4 of them won't die. I'll give you a quick death. Otherwise, all of you will die." Wan Long's voice was cold and arrogant. He was not brainless. He knew that Chun Hao was deliberately provoking him, but he still chose to say it. They were already indifferent to Ol. Second's decision from the start. Now that Chun Hao had used this opportunity to humiliate the 4 berserk dragons, there was no need for them to do so anymore. If they did that, even if they won, it would stain the reputation of the 4 berserk dragons. It might even affect their Tao heart in the future. Second Brother Wan Ting's tightly knitted brows gradually relaxed. He was influenced by the 3 brothers' determination and instantly became unscrupulous. More accurately, he could not be unscrupulous. Furthermore, Wan Long's words just now were not completely ignored. Letting Long Ting, Chun Shui, and the sisters go, especially Chun Shui and the sisters, who were likely to have fake identities, was his suggestion. Up until now, none of the Sacred Hall disciples had recognized Chun Shao Bai and the sisters before coming to the primitive secret realm. Although he could not be sure now, if the 3 of them really had fake identities, their backgrounds were definitely not simple. "You are someone. Hand over the treasures on you and I'll give you a quick death. Otherwise, die." At the moment when swords were drawn, everyone knew that a great battle was about to break out. However, they still didn't expect Chun Hao to give them a taste of their own medicine, so they said tit for tat. Arrogant. Boom 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 boom. Clang 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 clang. The 4 berserk dragons roared at the same time. Their voices, tones, and expressions all became the same. At the same time, there was an explosion from their bodies. Their essence, qi, and spirit fused into one and they unsheathed their swords. Chi 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 chi. Chun Shui, Long Ting, and the sisters rushed to Chun Hao's side at the same time and stood shoulder to shoulder. The surrounding cultivators, including the team behind the 4 berserk dragons, were all frightened away by the pressure that had suddenly soared by countless times. At this moment, they realized that whether it was the 4 berserk dragons or Chun Hao's group, they were not people they could contend against. Just the pressure alone made it difficult for them to move, let alone fight. That was simply courting death. Unless they fought to the death with no regard for their lives, there would be no effect. They would just be throwing their lives away. The 4 of you, on account of the fact that you are all disciples of the Divine Hall, if you don't want to die, step back. Wan Ting frowned and said to Chun Shui and the other 3. On account of the fact that you are all disciples of the Divine Hall, it's not too late for you to regret now. Otherwise, Chun Shui said fearlessly as a terrifying destruction sword principle aura bloomed around her. Kill without mercy. Long Ting, who had always had an optimistic appearance, was now filled with fighting spirit. Her majestic and powerful physical aura was actually emitting a faint golden light as she continued Chun Shui's words. Since you don't want to listen to us, don't blame us for being ruthless, Wan Ting said. At this moment, the four berserk dragons' expressions turned solemn. The auras of Chen Hao and the four girls were not weaker than any of them. Although they were confident that they would win, they also knew that this battle would be the most difficult battle since they entered the primitive secret realm. It was impossible to take them down easily. Step back. Chen Hao suddenly looked at Chen Shui and the other three and frowned slightly. He secretly gave them a look and said, I alone am enough to deal with them. You guys save your strength. Crash, isn't that too awesome? Does Chen Hao not know anything about the four berserk dragons? He's courting death. If the five of them join forces, it's still possible. What's the difference between him and his death? Yes, although the four berserk dragons are not very strong individually, if they join forces, who can defeat them? The cultivators, who had already retreated far away, immediately burst into discussion when they heard Chen Hao's arrogant words that did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Then be careful. Chen Shui frowned slightly and her expression turned solemn. Swoosh! Swoosh! Roar! At the moment when Chen Shui and the other three retreated, the four berserk dragons did not waste any more words. They directly attacked from 50 meters away. The four swords shot out together and the sword chi contained the power of heaven as they charged toward Chen Hao. The powerful heavenly Tao law was forced to disperse, the wind raged and the sky changed color. At this moment, the aura that was released caused the surrounding cultivators to gasp. Heavenly Dragon Sword Art. It's really powerful. He hasn't broken through the sixth limit and already has such power. A figure quietly hidden in the crowd narrowed his eyes and immediately locked onto Chen Hao, who was swinging his sword. He thought to himself, I want to see how strong he is. It's been 3 years. I must get the Tao manifestation, immortal fruit core. Around this figure, who had completely hidden his true body, there were several people who had restrained their aura to the extreme and changed their appearance and aura. Their seemingly ordinary eyes were locked onto Chen Hao at this moment. They knew very well how strong the four berserk dragons were. The heavenly dragon sword art was just the beginning. They hoped that Chen Hao could win. Facing Chen Hao was much better than facing the four berserk dragons. However, that was unrealistic. In their opinion, Chen Hao would definitely lose this battle, and they would still have to face the four berserk dragons in the end. Break for me. Chen Hao directly increased his strength to 100%, and a rare solemn expression appeared between his brows. For 3 years, he, who was as lonely as snow, did not think that the battle back then could give him and the girls eternal peace. That was just the calm before the storm. Today, the appearance of the four berserk dragons was the fuse. It was also just the fuse. Even if there were only the four berserk dragons, it would not be easy for Chen Hao to win, not to mention, therefore, Chen Hao did not show any mercy. Rumble, the sky fell and the earth cracked. The sword slashed the four berserk dragons. The raging energy directly detonated heaven and earth. Ah! Retreat! The surrounding cultivators had already retreated far enough considering the strength of the four berserk dragons and Chen Hao. However, the terrifying energy released from the first move made the cultivators closer to them scream in horror. One by one, they activated their energy and quickly retreated. No one expected that the four berserk dragons' probing attack would cause Chen Hao to directly explode. The raging energy turbulence was enough to severely injure an ordinary cultivator. Under the condition that the 9 seals of immortal sealing had not been unsealed, he could release such power. Bang! 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 The four berserk dragons also frowned, but they did not panic at all. This was just a probing attack. When the four sword chi dragons were released, a terrifying energy also erupted under their feet. Gravel flew everywhere, and 4 deep pits appeared. The 4 of them were like arrows released from a bow, instantly surrounding Chen Hao. You want to end this quickly? That's exactly what I want. Then I'll let you experience the power of the 4 celestial dragons. Celestial Dragon Territory. Boom! The arrogant and cold voice of the leader of the 10,000 dragons sounded. The moment the four of them surrounded Chen Hao in the four celestial dragons' positions, there was an explosion at the same time. Essence Qi condensed into four pillars of light, soaring into the sky, spiraling and dancing together. Celestial Dragon Territory? At this moment, Chen Hao felt as if a mountain was pressing down on him. Powerful indeed. Damn it, not one of them came. Once they came, they all came. It will be difficult to escape unscathed today. Facing the four celestial dragons' special ability, the Celestial Dragon Territory, Chen Hao felt immense pressure. Unless I tell them. Chen Hao's mind raced, but he immediately rejected this idea. With the four berserk dragons' nature, even if he said that someone wanted to be the Oriole, it would be difficult for them to stop the battle. Instead, it would weaken his momentum. Then let's fight. Today, let me test my strongest battle prowess. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 7:15. Ha ha! Idiot, in the same realm, no one dares to fight with us four brothers. Ha ha! You're really an idiot. I thought it would take a lot of effort, but I didn't expect that there would be someone who didn't dodge in front of us. If you had honestly handed over the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core at the beginning, we could have left you with an intact corpse. But now, Humph, I will personally dig it out from your dantian and tear you to pieces. The Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core is such a precious treasure that only us brothers can have. Big brother, third brother, fourth brother, no need to talk nonsense with him. Let's end this quickly. The eyes of the four wild dragons shone with arrogance and excitement. Each of their auras was as heavy as a mountain. Under the bright light of the Sky Dragon Territory, they were like gods, looking down on the world with disdain and absolute power. To be able to easily surround Chen Hao and form the Sky Dragon Territory was indeed beyond their expectations. Under normal circumstances, in the same realm, any top genius in the vast universe star system would have to avoid fighting. The four of them usually formed the Sky Dragon battle formation of four divisions first, and after their mental strength was completely combined, they would use their combined strength and speed to surround their opponent and use the Sky Dragon Territory. Once the Sky Dragon Territory trapped their opponent, that would be the moment they won. There had never been an exception. The four of them didn't expect that they would be able to surround Chen Hao so easily. Although this was inevitable in the end, it also saved a lot of time and energy. How could the four of them not be excited? In their opinion, either Chen Hao did not understand the terror of their heavenly dragon domain, or he was so arrogant that he could not find north. There is no suspense. I really don't know if this Chen Hao is too arrogant or he doesn't know the power of the four wild dragons. The Sky Dragon Territory is enveloped. Not to mention Chen Hao, even an early heavenly immortal stage master would have to surrender. I thought he was strong, but I didn't expect him to be defeated so soon. What should we do? The sisters asked worriedly. At this moment, not to mention Chen Hao, who was in the core of the Sky Dragon Territory, even they, who were outside, could feel the terrifying pressure emitted by the Sky Dragon Territory. They were sure that as long as they rushed forward, they would be trapped in it, and it would be difficult for them to even touch the four wild dragons. Brother Hao knows how powerful the Sky Dragon Territory is. Since he didn't dodge, he should be able to break it. If he can't, we'll attack. Long Ting's battle-intent soared. Her long hair danced in the wind, and her majestic and terrifying blood energy caused the surrounding space to distort. Don't worry, although I don't know the present, but when he was very weak back then, he was able to break through a domain that was higher than his own realm. Although the heavenly dragon domain is strong, it is still a domain, and it is a domain derived from the heavenly dragon four symbols formation. What Hao is least afraid of is formations. Chen Shui's beautiful eyes stared unblinkingly at the four wild dragons and Chen Hao. Although her words were relaxed, her aura was the same as Long Ting's. Both of them had gathered to the peak. Once there was a change, there was no doubt that she would unleash an earth-shattering attack. Even if she fell into the heavenly dragon domain, she would not hesitate. As for the aureole, that Chen Hao had discovered long ago, they could only take it one step at a time. No matter what, today was destined to be a bloody battle. Dismember into 1,000 pieces? Today, I'll punch the tiger of the southern mountain and kick the dragon of the northern sea, and you four worms? Watch how I trample you into meat paste. Come. Boom. When the four wild dragons were complacent, everyone thought that Chen Hao was going to lose, and Chen Hao and the rest were worried about him. Chen Hao's body, which seemed to be bent by the sky dragon territory, suddenly straightened like an arrow released from a bow. Your strength is not bad, but it's a pity that it's just a last-ditch struggle. Kill him. Boss Wan Long's robe swelled up, and his eyes were filled with killing intent as he let out a loud roar. Chi. Boss Wan Yu followed his roar and swung his sword. Rumble, the earth trembled, and the space shattered. A terrifying sword light, like a silver waterfall, slashed toward Chen Hao with a terrifying force. No one in the Earth's celestial stage can block this sword. Although the four wild dragons were surprised that Chen Hao could straighten his body, they were only surprised. At this moment, Boss Wan Yu's sword slashed out, and that was the moment when Chen Hao would die. In their opinion, no one in the Earth's celestial stage could resist the combined power of the four brothers. Especially in the Sky Dragon territory, their power was enhanced, and Chen Hao had to divert a large part of his power to resist the suppression of the territory. What was the suspense? Get ready. The moment Wan Yu slashed his sword, several figures had already quietly approached from the crowd. One of the figures' beautiful vermilion lips opened slightly. Although there was no sound, the people who had been paying attention to her all this time instantly understood. One by one, they grasped the hilts of their swords, and a sharp light flashed in their eyes. Buzz. Chen Hao attacked. His speed was not fast. To be exact, it was very slow in the eyes of the crowd. It was so slow that everyone could see every movement of his body, as if it was in slow motion. It was a sharp contrast to Wan Yu's sword. Moreover, Chen Hao's sword seemed to be very heavy. However, while Chen Hao's sword was still charging forward, it made a fierce buzzing sound. The ancient sword, which was shining with a cold light, seemed to suddenly become bigger and its shape changed. Rumble. The moment Wan Yu's sword light neared his body, Chen Hao's action of thrusting his sword forward suddenly erupted. When the sword light and the treasure sword met, it was as if heavenly thunder had broken through the sky. The translucent golden heavenly dragon domain began to tremble violently. Rumble. Immediately, an even more terrifying explosion was heard. Dust filled the air, and gravel flew everywhere. Crisscrossing sword marks and deep pits appeared on the hard rock ground. Rumble, rumble, rumble! Terrifying screams erupted from the surrounding crowd. Countless people activated their energy to defend themselves. Those who reacted slower were injured. Fortunately, it was only a turbulent flow of energy and was not enough to kill them. The surrounding palaces automatically shone with a powerful protective light at this moment. Deng, deng, deng! Wan Yu's robe was riddled with holes. If not for the soft armor he wore before entering the primitive secret realm, he would probably be naked in front of everyone. Impossible! How is this possible? Regardless of whether it was the four wild dragons, the spectating cultivators, or the aureole hiding in the surroundings, ready to make a move at the critical moment, all of them widened their eyes in shock. No one had thought that in the heavenly dragon domain, Under the situation where one side was weakened and the other side was strengthened, not only was Chun Hao not killed, he even gained the upper hand. He is actually so strong. There is no need to hold back, kill. After a short period of shock, the 10,000 dragons, who were at the core, glared angrily. Light shone brightly, and suddenly, it was as if they were burning in flames. A dragon-shaped shadow appeared on their bodies, and a bright light rose. Like a divine dragon roaming the void, they stabbed out with their sword. At the same time, second brother, third brother, and fourth brother attacked at the same time with the same posture. No one could imagine how powerful these 4 swords were when they merged into one. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.